Happy Monday, degenerates. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Clint, and we are here to break down UFC Saudi Arabia. We do not have Fireball and popcorn this week. We got mimosas and waffles. It's a morning fight, everybody. If you didn't realize that, this is your announcement. Make sure you set your dang alarm clock. We got to get up bright and early for this one because they are back in they're back in Saudi Arabia. We're going to have to wake up, roll out of bed, get yourself a breakfast, get yourself something to drink. Maybe you're not going hard in the morning. Maybe we're doing orange juice or something like that. You could spike it a little, but just be forewarned before anything gets going. We got to keep that in mind for this particular fight card. We did go ahead and take a week off last week. I've only done that twice. I mean, like, I haven't taken a week off of doing the podcast, even on break weeks where there's nothing going on. There was some stuff going on last week, PFL, bare knuckle. There was some stuff going on, and I still took a week off. I don't know if you guys saw the post. I tried to keep everybody in the loop. My wife and my daughter, with MLK Day being the day with the inauguration and all that kind of stuff, they were like, just chill with us. Take the day off, hang out. And I was like, all right, fine. So I gave in. You got to be a good dad sometimes. And I hung out with my daughter. We played some Mario Party. And, a lot happened. A lot has happened between UFC 311 and today, which is one of the reasons why I try not to take weeks off. Because that one little easy pod in the middle where I'm not breaking down fights, we're just kind of talking about what's going on. We kind of cover all that on that particular show. But so just, little recap for your boy. It was an interesting week. First and foremost, we have to give an absolutely massive shout out to Dad. That is right. None other than Pops. Ben Rothwell himself won the BKFC heavyweight title. You go, Dad. Biggest right hand y'all have ever seen. You'll love to see it. He got gold wrapped around his waist in BKFC, and I don't think Big Ben Rothwell's giving that title back anytime soon. So good stuff. And then I hung out with, like I said, my daughter. I took her out to our favorite breakfast place. We got ourselves a flight of bacon. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but it is literally like a flight of beer where it's a bunch of different flavors. It's a flight of freaking bacon. So you've got jalapeno, you've got pepper, you've got honeyed, you've got cinnamon, you've got garlic, you've got candied. I mean, just heaven. And then this place is known for having a maple bacon donut. That's right. So nice sweet maple on top and then bacon on top. And instead of like your normal donut, it's more of like a cake type filling. And so yeah, we had a pretty good week off over here, you guys. Good to be back. Wouldn't be rather anywhere else than this seat right here talking to you guys about some mixed martial arts. What is going on to everybody in the chat? We got Anthony Ambergay already giving out the warning here on Izzy. We've got Lucky Day MMA. What's going on? My guy JB in the house. Louis Mack Jr. We've got Tony. We've got Dylan. Half the battle. Friend of the show, regular guest, my guy Dan Levy, the Miami lawyer. What is going on? As you guys can see, we've got the Twitch people rolling now. Your boy is expanding new horizons. So welcome to everybody watching the show from Twitch. Meatball, David Ramirez, Landon Young. We've got Grateful Dude, my guy Dream in the house. What's going on? And Marab's disciple. Hey, I got to tell you, this is one thing. We didn't get to talk about UFC 311, right? We didn't get to talk about it because I took last week off. So we'll go ahead and talk about it briefly here. I Merab's disciple, have been one of the very few people banging the drum on the fact that Merab is one of the greatest fighters on planet Earth. And we've been cashing tickets and betting him relentlessly on this road to the title. I've made so much money on Merab, and I absolutely should not have gotten out of the bus. Shouldn't have gotten out of the bus. I really feel bad about this one. You know, on my last podcast for UFC 311, I did try to warn you guys a little bit. Like this was my prophecy. Cousin Umar was supposed to be the guy, and if you look at everything the UFC did to set him up, he was supposed to win that fight. Merab was on a quick turnaround, fourth fight within 1 calendar year, not enough time to prepare, shut out of the PI, not enough time to train, injured on his way in. I mean, like the deck was freaking stacked. And frankly, I honestly think that the coaching staff cost Umar the title. And I know we're talking about Team Eagle, right? Team Khabib. You can't really get away with saying there's anything wrong with that particular coaching staff. But you guys, I'm watching that fight, and Umar is playing it perfectly. We've got 2 rounds in the bag. We all know what happens when Merab gets going, right? So we've got to get round 3 in the bag. If you don't get round 3 in the bag against Merab, you're dead man walking. And the corner is telling Umar to shoot for takedowns. And I'm just, oh my God. Like, I got a nice haircut today for you, by the way. I don't look like a drunk chia pet anymore, but I'm pulling what's left of my hair out when I hear that, because I'm like, no, kid's a kickboxer. He's doing great, managing range, use the wrestling in reverse, tag this guy up with kicks at distance. Don't even worry about the grappling. Conserve that gas tank. And they're going, take him down. Go get takedowns. Take him down. Optics went completely Merab's way from that point, because Umar is getting stuffed on every takedown attempt. His mouth starts hanging open. He's getting tired. It's like, bro, if you had just stuck to like the distance and kicking game plan, just stick and move, just keep jabbing, get him with that crescent kick 1 or 2 more times. Like round 3 is ours and we win that fight. So I really think Umar's corner cost him that fight. Regardless, it was a close fight. It was a good fight. And what do I always tell you guys? We try to bet the best number. On the last podcast, I told you guys this number is wrong and it should have been a pick 'em, right? And still I went out there, and because Umar was my prophecy title holder in this weight class, I laid the chalk. And that's a mistake. And I shouldn't have done that. And I hope that some of you were smart enough to take the plus money on Merab, because if you're getting plus 2x on Merab, you just take it. You just take it. And I should have thought this through, because my biggest bet was not my parlay that had Umar in it, but my Umar futures that I need to get all the way to the end of 2025 to be able to cash. It's a simple and easy hedge to just take Merab's money line at plus 250, whatever it was before this fight. Because if Merab wins, I could cover my ass on the future. And then if Umar wins, I drop like 1 or 2 units, right? But then the future is the bigger score at the end of the year. It was an easy hedge, and I fucked up. And I hate admitting that, but it became just so clear in hindsight that I messed that whole situation up. So yeah, Maniac hit it on the head. We all got greedy. And that's it. I got greedy. I knew I had the script in my head. It was there. It was so obvious. And it was this close. But the fact of the matter is the number was wrong. And we need to do our best not to steer into those wrong numbers. So I hope some of you got the, that little parachute pull I gave at the end, where I said, even though I think it's going to be Umar, that the number was completely incorrect and you should be playing Merab at that one. Meatball asking, Patchy or Merab, who's your guy at bantamweight? Now, I will, honestly, Meatball is referring to the video where I put out my rankings for the weight class. I will stick to my guns, and I will say that Patchy is the one guy that can actually take out Merab. Now, we may never know, but I with all the contract issues going on with Bellator and the PFL and all that kind of shit right now, there's a little crack. There's a little window for me to be proven right. We'll see. But I think Patchy Mix is a demon. I think if Patchy moves over to the UFC, he's fighting for that title within 2 fights and has an opportunity to take gold in the UFC. we can't really get into everything, you guys. Maybe if I've got time, I'll try to do like a better recap show for you. I apologize. The UFC machine just keeps on rolling. And if you miss a week, you're old news. So we got to get into UFC Saudi. I don't have enough time to go through literally everything. The one thought that I will leave you with from UFC 311 after getting my ass whooped on that card is that Carol Hossa is dead to me. Okay, Aileen Perez twerked all over me yet again, and I will never recover from this. With that, let's bring in this week's guest. Some of you guys on Twitter, it's weird because we always talk about this. If you're really good on like a certain platform, for whatever reason, your content doesn't seem to take off quite the same way on the others. So Twitter people, you may not know my guy Nolan, but if you're from Instagram, you could not have missed my man blowing the place up. So we have got none other than my guy, The Parlay MMA. What's going on, man? How you doing today?
What's up, Clint? Thanks for having me, man. Like I was telling you before this, I've watched the show many times, super familiar with all your work, and I'm a fan. So it's an honor to be on here, man.
Absolutely, dude. It's long overdue. It's long overdue. We should have done this a while ago. So I apologize for I don't know, just never having it hit me across the head that we should have hooked this one up already. But thank you for being here on the show to break down these fights here with me.
Absolutely. We're here now.
Absolutely. Hey, I got my ass whooped at UFC 311, man. How did you do?
It was looking really bad for me once the main card hit. I was kind of teetering on the prelims. I'm like, all right, I've made a little bit of money here where things could go south in a hurry, or we're gonna have a good night. I took Jamal Hill. He lost. Who else did I have? I forget who else I had off the top. Oh, Zach Reese was before the main card, but he just gets beat to shreds on the ground in the first round. And then Peyton Talbot and Barcelos couldn't finish the fight inside 2 rounds. So that killed me too. So I ended up only down, I think it was 1/10 of a unit, minus 0.1 units on the night. So nothing hurt there. But it was definitely a card where, looking back, hindsight's always 2020. There was some terrible plays I made that could have gave us a good night, but that's the game, man. That's the game.
Bro, I feel the exact same way. Where, like, in hindsight, I'm looking back at my card from UFC 311 and I'm just going, what was I doing? Like, there were so many spots that, regardless of the outcomes, right, that just, like, the number was just wrong everywhere. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Jamal and Yuri, coin flip. I've lost so many coin flips at 205 the last couple of times around. I can't even count them. I just got to stop betting them. Like, especially when they're right in this, minus 135 to plus 115 type of range. Why? Like, why am I putting money on those fights? And so I need to just stop doing that. Holland and DeRitter, I nailed the DeRitter play. That was the one and only play that I really got home on that fight card. So that one felt good. But it's funny because I'm hanging out with my father-in-law and his best friend, who are the two biggest mushes of all time gambling. Every time they sit with me and tail me, I have just an awful night. So I went, okay, I need to find something that'll win for them, right? I need to find something that will cash for them. So I put on like my square hat and I did a parlay of Kevin Holland and DeRitter doesn't go the distance with Jailton Almeida inside the distance.
Nice.
They're happy as could be. It cashes. It's free. You didn't have to pick a side on the tough fight. You just knew it was going to finish. And I'm like, why didn't I do that for myself? They hit me up and they're like, bro, how do I make money on this card? And I'm like, I got you. But I didn't even do it for me. Like, that's the kind of card it was, man. Very, very upsetting. And I will tell you, people got mad at me for this one, man. People got mad at me. I am so mad that the Zachary Reese fight and Dumas fight didn't happen, because I was going to take the entire bag home with me on Dumas at plus 250 or whatever he was, insanity. And I swear I'm never getting that number back ever again. If they ever rebook that fight, people now see how fragile Zachary Reese is. The mystique and the aura, it's gone. I'm never going to get plus 225, plus 250 ever again in that fight. I don't care how bad people think Cedric Dumas is. It doesn't matter, because Reese is worse. And that's one where, like, the MMA gods just kind of took that one from me, because if I had dropped a bomb on Dumas, which I was fully planning on doing, by the way, I was going to put a 5-unit bet at plus 225 on Cedric Dumas. If I had made that bet, there's other bets on the board where my money's tied up. I just wasn't going to make other plays. You know what I mean? So, like, it sucks to look at that and be like, now again, that one could have lost, right? It could have lost. But I think of it as like that kind of made or broke my night from the jump, because I could have been incredibly positive. Or even if I had lost that one, I probably would have stayed off a couple of other bets, and I probably would have still saved money by staying off of those. So like, just frustrating to have a fight like that where you feel like you've got a really good read fall off the card and then feel like it cost you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Zachary Reese, it's like he cuts the mullet off and all the aura, whatever he had is gone. Like he comes in bald, gets taken down. I expected the takedown defense to be much better than that. And I expected him, he had some decent moments off of his back with the elbows and everything, but that's not where he wants to fight. I expected him to try to get back to his feet if he was taken down. It never happened and he got punched out. So
yeah,
the way she goes, Clint.
That's the way she goes. You know what? Andrew has a real good question here in the chat, though. Thoughts about the GFL? My goodness, you guys, I could do an entire podcast on the GFL. Love the idea because, man, I don't know about you. I was a little heartbroken when PFL bought Bellator because I know what's happening now is what they were going to do. They're going to gut Bellator. We're going to lose 70% of that roster, and then it's just going to be PFL and the UFC. They're dissolving it. They're taking the couple little pieces that they like, and everybody else is headed to the regionals. When there's 3 major MMA shows and you've got like double features on Saturdays, or if you've got like two cards on Fridays, or even when like the PFL would do Thursdays sometimes, it's heaven for me. I'm like, man, we don't get basketball where there's 6 good games on every single night. We don't get hockey where there's a 12 game slate on a Thursday. Like, we've got to wait until Saturday and maybe sometimes Friday. So I'm frustrated that happened. And I love that the GFL might give us some other major MMA organization to watch and or bet on. The problem for me is they're taking all these geriatric bastards out of the old folks home, right out of the hospice, and they're throwing them in. And then the draft, it's all AI. Like, it's all AI, terrible AI CGI. And then you've got Rashad Evans coming out and being like, bro, I never signed with you. He's drafted. Like, he's in one of the teams for the GFL. And he's like, I never even signed with you guys. I don't know what you're talking about. So, like, what in the money laundering is going on right now? Because I have no clue. I was talking to Luke Thomas on Twitter, and I was like, is there a possibility that these are completely CGI fights? Like, is there an outside chance that these guys have like sold their likeness to the GFL and we're not going to get actual fights, but these are going to be like like someone's going to be playing UFC 5 and we're going to get simulated like prime versus prime type of fights because these guys have sold their likeness? Honestly, I kind of hope like that would actually be the coolest twist of this whole thing, is if it wasn't even real MMA, if it was just strictly AI and CGI. And like, if the biggest thing would be like if fans could like vote on their stats, where they like pull us, people that watch these guys in their primes, to like tweak the numbers on that kind of shit and then ran simulated fights on it. I'd be all for it. But they're wearing like Starship Troopers type armor for their walkouts in the draft. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like, what? I cannot make heads or tails of the GFL. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I should be excited for it. I don't know if I should even bother watching. Right now, it's kind of a train wreck that I can't look away from. What do you make of the GFL?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes off the bat, because it's a cool idea. What I think, there's another organization that tried to do it back in the early 2000s, like IFL, the International Fight League, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But right now with everybody in the UFC or the PFL, they're kind of just grabbing the biggest names they can, whether they're 43 years old or not. And maybe that's just how they kick it off in the first year, get people to like the idea. And then from there, maybe other guys that are younger are interested, or if they get cut from the UFC after a couple of fights, then they can start heading in, and we'll see how it goes. But it's a cool concept. Like you said, this seems like this is a pretty big build afoot. I mean, there's a lot of big names they've got to pay, and it seems like they're spending a lot of money. So I'm curious to see if they can make it work in the long run. A lot of these organizations can't. Like, you have to be very, very strategic. You have to be extremely smart with your money, production, everything, to be able to last in this space as an organization. It's why we don't have a lot of big ones. And the UFC is just such a hard organization to compete with, that kind of makes it tough for any of these new coming leagues and stuff like that. So I hope it works out. It's a fun idea. We'll see how it goes after the first season.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I can't wait to see if the cage door actually ever closes. We'll
Yeah.
find out if these fights ever even. Oh no, Raw Torque. He says, damn. And I just bought a shitload of GFL meme coin. Oh no, not the meme. Okay. One more thing, I promise. And then we'll get into the fights. I swear we'll get into the fights after this. I got to tell you guys, I am really frustrated at the whole meme coin thing, Nolan, because I wanted to make a diehard MMA meme coin. Now, nobody clip the shit out of context and try to, get me eviscerated online or anything like that. I don't do crypto. Okay. I don't know crypto. I missed the boat, right? So like I need to buy a Bitcoin or two. I can't. I should have. I didn't, etc. But when this shit all started, I was like, okay, how cool. Like for the people who really like supported me from the jump to be able to get like a meme coin and then offer like, I don't know, podcast related rewards for it. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you could buy like a cameo on the show or like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, like really use it and turn it into something that I could like give back to my own fan base with. I'm like, that'd be a freaking cool idea. And then everybody started rug pulling. And then like freaking Donald Trump went full hawk Tua on all the Republicans and took everybody's money. Like I would get roasted if I went out there and I was like, hey guys, announcing Die Hard MMA coin, baby. Like I would be dragged through the streets. Like nobody would be interested. I'm upset because it was a real window of opportunity for fun and they ruined it.
Definitely ruined, man. I mean, it's a cool concept, but man, it seems like you see so many more horror stories on it than success and fun stories. So
Don't buy meme coins, kids. Okay, just don't. All right, don't do it. All right. And on that note, we'll actually get into the MMA. See, this is why I got to do a weekly show, man. This is like my therapy. So when I don't, even on the weeks where there's nothing to talk about, I've got shit to say. So if I don't do my show, I end up making my next show way too long and have nothing to do with fighting. So I apologize. Let's get into it. First fight on the board, you guys. Oh, good Lord. Hamdy Abdelwahab returns and he takes on Jamal Pogues. Guys, it's the return of Hamdy. Like, this is each and every person right now who had to look at this fight. I put out that meme today and I got hit right in the gut, man, that someone replied to it and was like, who is that? And I died a little inside. I'm like, there are actually people out there who are MMA fans or MMA gamblers who survived the Hamdy Al-Wahab crisis. Like, I am so envious of those people because for those of you who don't know, Hamdy Abdel-Wahab is a Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler, right? So he's very, very good. He's Egyptian Daniel Cormier, right? So he transfers over to MMA, goes 3-0 immediately. He's 29-ish years old, and the UFC is like, buddy, get in here. Like, because he looks like he's gonna be the next Daniel Cormier, just plucking him right out of nowhere to sink him into the UFC. And they match him up against Don'Tale Mayes. So if you go back and you kind of run the tape on him, especially his early fights, it's like, well, he's a wrestler transitioning to MMA. Obviously, the whole game isn't there. So it looks like, you know what? This is probably a too much too soon spot. Everybody likes Don'Tale Mayes. Absolutely everybody on the internet loves Don'Tale Mayes. I bet Don'Tale. He opened up as a slight dog. I think I laid minus 135, but then it just kept steaming. That was one of the first instances that I can recall. You know, everyone always wants to do like the CLV trophies, right? Like the closing line value trophy. That was one of the first instances where I realized in MMA, CLV is bad. Like in other sports, when you beat the market, you're like, I feel great right now. Like everybody's on my side. I got there early. It's efficient. You know, you're on the right side. In MMA, it kind of feels like leading a herd of mad cows, right? Like, because when everybody else sees the same thing and a pick'em fight turns into a minus 200 fight, you're like, oh no. Like everybody's seeing it the exact same way you do. You just know you're dead. You're just dead. And this is the one where I realized that was the case because I thought I was slick. I'm like, man, it opened up like plus 115. I missed the really good number, but I got minus 135. Like, I'm still good. I'm still good. He lost a split decision to Hamdy that night. And it was a situation where Hamdy coming forward and just putting his head down and winging hooks. And Don'Tale Mayes did some of the stupidest shit you've ever seen a fighter do. He's doing like leaping in scissor trips and shit like that, and just ending up on bottom that you're like, oh God, like what? Like, Don'Tale, what are you doing, bro? Like, just punch him in the face. That's all. If he would just jab and move, he'd be fine. But he's trying to wrestle the wrestler. He's trying to get fancy. He's trying to spin. And Hamdy took advantage of all those situations. So Hamdy wins a split decision. Everybody loses their money, right? The entire internet is on fire because it was a close fight, and I think Don'Tale probably still deserved to actually get his hand raised, even after all the mistakes, because Hamdy would get like 40 minutes of control time at the end of the round, where like he didn't really do anything. It was more of Don'Tale like putting himself in a bad position, and Hamdy then exhaustedly laying on top of him. So it was a pretty questionable split decision to go that other way. But at the end of the day, round 3 comes around and Hamdy did exactly what he needed to do. He got on top of Don'Tale. He pinned him into the corner between the fence and the ground and made sure Don'Tale was carrying his weight and made sure he was on top. And it was enough. And this is one of those spots to me, man, where it's like, oh my God, okay, so do I hate bet Hamdy and put my money on Jamal Pogues just to try to get revenge? Do I trust this guy who I didn't think could beat Don'Tale Mayes with my money? Like, this is a fireball and popcorn fight, guys. Stay away from this one unless you really know something that nobody else does, because it's a pick 'em. We got minus 110 on both sides of this thing. And Jamal Pogues, I just don't believe, man. I'll be honest. 29 years old. He's a middleweight that fought at 205 that has now blown up to 265. Like, he's bro is me, right? Like, he's just out of shape and out there trying to punch people. Like, he's not, he should be fighting at 185 pounds and just let himself get out of hand. So he's quick. He's fast for heavyweight, but he hasn't fought anybody. He beat, Josh Parisian, Thomas Pedersen, somebody we'll talk about a little bit later in the card. He lost to McParkin. I mean, he just doesn't have a resume whatsoever. And I like his jab. His body kick is decent, but that's literally all he's got. He doesn't have a sophisticated striking game. He's not a very good grappler. And he's got decent takedown defense on paper. But who's he fought? Like, Josh Parisian? You're going to give him a bunch of credit for defending takedowns from Josh Parisian? Like, I don't care how bad Hamdy is at overall MMA. He's going to be able to take this guy down. He's going to be able to wrestle. But I don't know what to expect, because Hamdy pops by USADA immediately after the Don'Tale Mayes fight. It gets overturned to a no contest. Do I get my refund? Do I get a push from the sports book? No, I don't, because it already got called as a Hamdy win that night. They don't go back and refund you for drug testing when it gets overturned. He's on anabolic everything. So he's been suspended for 2 years. But why hasn't bro come back? All of those suspensions are retroactive. All of them, it's like, okay, well, we're 9 months into your 2-year suspension, but he doesn't ever come back to fight. What happened? He's been gone for 3 years now. He's gone longer than his suspension. So I don't know what to do with Hamdy. And you look at his socials, he looks the exact same, man. He doesn't look like a thing has changed. He hasn't lost a pound. He's not any thicker. It'd be hard for him to get hairier, but he's not any hairier. Like, there's nothing that's changed about Hamdy visually speaking. So I don't know if he's just rolling off the couch. I don't know if he's going to come in extra juiced because we're in Saudi Arabia. Like, that's the way I'd have to look. But this is a guy I already struggled to trust his full MMA game, his cardio, his gas in the first place. And now we're 3 years removed. He's now getting towards the end of his fighting prime. And I don't even know if he's been training MMA in the last 3 years. So I have no idea what to do with this fight. I'm going to pick Hamdy because I think he's going to make everybody cry again. He'll be able to take down Jamal Pogues, put him on his ass, and then just kind of sit on top of him. And when you've got a true heavyweight, especially a heavyweight who can grapple versus a skinny fat guy, it's going to be hard for the skinny fat guy to hold your weight. It's going to be hard for the skinny fat guy to get up out from under you. And I think that we're just going to get a situation where Pogues tires out, because unless he catches Hamdy early, even if he catches Hamdy early, man, I don't think he's got the power to knock out Hamdy Abdelwahab. I have a real hard time seeing Pogues hurt Hamdy Abdelwahab on the feet. So I think Hamdy's going to eventually disrespect his power, get in, get takedowns. And whether he's leaning up against him on the fence or dragging his ass to the floor, I think eventually Hamdy gets on top of this guy. So I will go ahead and side with Team Egypt for this one. I just got to decide if I'm dumb enough to actually put my money on it or not. I'm sorry for the long breakdown. I had some trauma, some PTSD we had to work through. So I went a little long on that one, man. What do you make of this fight, and what are you doing?
No, this is a fight where I think a lot of people are kind of looking over, but this is one that intrigues me. And, my big concern, I lean a lot of the same ways as you here. My big concern, you touched on, man, like he's been out for 3 years. Hamdy's been out. He's not like in incredible shape, never has been, but he is juicing. He likes to stay strong. And maybe that's the reason we haven't seen him in 3 years. Maybe he just didn't want to come off the sauce. And now they're fighting in Saudi Arabia. I think what was the first UFC Saudi Arabia card just 6 months ago? That was the first time they've ever been to Saudi. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and so it's a different rule set over there. Those guys throw up big money, enough money that kind of people might turn the other way and kind of go blind to the fact that some of these guys are on the sauce over there. But when I look at his game, he is a good wrestler. He's short, he's compact. When he fought Dontel Mays, I was on Mays as well because I thought Mays would be too athletic to hold down. But we soon found out, especially late in the fight, that Hamdy distributes his weight well when he's on top of fighters. Kind of had Dontel pinned and was landing some good uppercuts and really short shots when he had Dontel kind of sitting with his back to the fence there. And that's one thing I like to see out of his game. He was exhausted. He was tired. He got hurt earlier in that fight. His eye was bothering him, but he still found a way to get it to the ground. He still had enough cardio to do so and hold down a 6'6" athlete like Dontel. I know he's not a real great athlete, but for the heavyweight division, Dontel's better than a lot of them. So I like seeing that out of Hamdy. I wasn't impressed with his striking, but he was cracking Dontel in that fight too, especially in rounds 1 and 2. It's not like he had a ton of technique, but some of those big hooks he was throwing, if they hit guys, he has some power. I think he could find knockouts.
Compact
too.
Wrestler power,
it is,
man.
Yeah.
When DC looks at the floor and wings the overhand, like they can hook, man.
His timing was decent on some of them too. And Jamal, I wish he had one more or two wrinkles in his game because you know what he's going to do. He's got a good jab. Outside of that, he's a mid-tier to lower-end UFC heavyweight. The guys he's fought at Josh Parisian, he took Josh Parisian down 5 times in that fight. No chance he's taking down Hamdy here. And if he does, he's not holding him down. He loses to Mick Parkin. That's a sloppy stand and trade jabs type of fight. I just think Hamdy's going to land the bigger shots. I think he's going to get a little bit of control time. And if Pogues gets tired, Hamdy can be tired all he wants. He's a wrestler and lifelong wrestler. He's going to know how to get you to the ground if you're tired too. So for those reasons, man, I like Hamdy as well.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're lining up here on this first one. Like I said, man, I have not bet this one. So we'll see if I get to the window pulling the trigger on this bet. I always try to remind people bankroll management is extremely important, guys. That's how you survive the swings. The books are required to put out a line for us on pretty much everything. We actually get to pick and choose. Man, I had this conversation with my father-in-law and again, his mushy best friend. Shout out. Love you, Mark. He was like, it's shocking, man. He's like, it's shocking. It doesn't matter what I bet. I can put in 10 bets and I can go 1-9. I don't understand it. He's like, if you think about these things as a coin flip, which again, he doesn't have the right attitude about it, but he's like, if you think about these things as flipping a coin, like how am I getting 9 of the 10 bets I place wrong? And I tried to tell him, I'm like, well, look, the thing is we're human and we're stupid. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just, hey, pick that one, pick that one, pick that one. We make the wrong choice sometimes. And you don't have to bet every single one unless you're really convicted, unless you've got, a real edge that you feel like you can push. This is exactly the kind of fight that I think that you can avoid because, man, I'll tell you, I'm scared shitless that they made Hamdy the underdog again. It's the exact same situation as what happened last time. He opens up plus 115. It's already steaming his direction. He is now minus 118 in some places. Like Hamdy has already flipped to being the favorite. And if this situation is just the reverse of the last time and he ends up going off as a large favorite because now everybody's bought in on Hamdy, I'm going to lose my shit. I can't lose money on this fight, you guys. It'll break me. Oh my goodness. All right. Let's get back into it, guys. We got another fight coming up here. We've got Bogdan Grad, and he takes on Lucas Alexander, the Lion. I like this fight.
This is a banger.
This is a banger, man. This is a good one. So Bogdan Grad is a guy that I had to kind of do a little bit of homework on. As you guys know, my new angle that I'm trying to abuse here is the 2 times Dana White's Contender Series angle. If they made it on Dana White's Contender Series and they didn't impress, or they lost and it took them a second attempt and they're not like a special talent that's being given, airtime for their second appearance, I think they're not UFC caliber. Just automatically, I'm just making a blanket statement here. I don't think they're worth our time. And more often than not, I think those are fighters that we can bet against and make money on. Bogdan Grad is one of these fighters. He falls in that category. In his first fight on Dana White's Contender Series, he got sparked and KO'd quick. The second time he comes back around and he goes, "Hey, I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to deviate from me. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do my thing." And sure enough, he did, and he fought better, but he went to a greasy split decision in that fight. So I'm not sure this guy is UFC caliber, period. So he's got suckered in by Dana White. He got suckered into a brawl in his first fight, and they said, "Go ahead and run it back." And then he wasn't even dominant in his second fight. He didn't get the win. He did get the win, but he didn't get the finish. So again, questions, right? This guy keeps his hands low, lots of wild kicks. He does roll pretty well with punches. He's got pretty decent head movement, lots of feints, lots of spinning attacks. He's got this leap in left hook though, where he can just be, I swear, man, guy would be like Masvidal's dream, because the way he comes in with that left hook, it's like face wide open type of leap in. Someone's going to spark him with that move. I promise you. Lucas Alexander, 8-4. He's 1-2 in the UFC. Both those losses were by finish. He's training out of Fusion XL. And this guy dropped his last fight as a -500 favorite. You guys, I haven't gotten a whole lot right recently, but I can pat myself on the back a little bit for this one, because he fought Jeka Sariga. Damn it, his last name really evades me every single time. Wheezy, I know you're in the chat laughing at me, because he actually was the one who corrected me the pronunciation the last time we broke that fight down. But anyway, this guy gets sparked in round 1 by Jeka, and that's a bad look. The road to UFC guys that are just absolutely doing awful in the UFC to this point. I said Lucas Alexander is a guy that you can't trust at this price tag, because while he's extremely pretty, while everything he does looks good, I don't think this guy can survive a car crash. And that's exactly what Jeka does, is cause a car crash. And the first time Jeka landed anything, he went to sleep. I mean, it was like he was stiff as a board. He wakes up and comes to, and he doesn't know where the hell he's at or what day it is. He went out, man. Like this guy's got Johnny Walker durability. I'm really concerned that he can't take any kind of damage. So I'm not trusting Lucas Alexander at this spot. And it is one of the other semi-pick'em fights on the board here. Lucas Alexander will have a 3-inch reach advantage. Currently, Bogdan Grad is the ever so slight favorite, -115, -120, somewhere in that ballpark, most places. I will pick Bogdan Grad because, frankly, I think I will want to fade Lucas Alexander's durability in this spot, but don't get it twisted. If Bogdan Grad doesn't KO this guy, I think Lucas Alexander is the more skilled fighter. I think he's going to be better as the fight gets extended. And Grad is not some guy that I can write home about his durability either. So I think there's a real possibility for both these guys to get finished in this fight. And I think violence might be a decent bet. I don't have a total to quote for you right this second, but I think under could be a half decent look here for both these guys. And I will pick Bogdan Grad and plan on fading him in the future.
Yep. When I watch tape on both these guys, first of all, Clint, let me know, can you still see me right now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'm getting used to this new camera, and I'm switching like tabs on here. So I just wanted to make sure. But if we're all good, that's good news. No, like I think Lucas Alexander is a far more technical and probably more skilled fighter than Grad. I mean, he's got a kickboxing experience. He's got quite a few fights, before the UFC in that realm, and he hits hard. He throws good kicks. I would guess he can grapple a little bit on the ground, being from where he's from. It's just like you said, he can't survive the car crashes. He should have beat Jeka Sergei 10 out of 10 times skill wise, much better, much longer. Probably ultimately, might well-roundedness much better than Sergei, but it's just that power he can't take, it seems. I mean, Jeka clocked him badly. A lot of people probably go out from that shot. But it scares me against a guy like Grad, who, yeah, he got finished by Tom Nolan, but he also ate 155 significant strikes from Michael Aswell in his next fight on the Contender Series, showing that he might have somewhat of a chin. And if he does here, I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to hit Alexander in this fight too. The one thing that's kind of holding me back is that we saw Lucas Alexander fight Steven Peterson, and his cardio looked phenomenal in that fight. He was able to fight all 3 rounds. He outlanded him like 3-1, I believe, maybe even 4-1, just completely dominated the fight. I know Peterson was a little bit older, and it's nothing at this stage in Peterson's career to write home about or anything. But he looked very good in that fight. And then in his debut, he gets Joanderson Brito, which is not the best debut you want to make in the UFC. And he was taken down a couple of times and submitted. So I don't really think Grad is going to come out here and find a submission. On the regionals, I've actually seen him taken down and put on his back and have trouble getting back to his feet before. But, if this is a technical kickboxing fight, I lean Alexander. But if it turns into any kind of brawl, I think you got to be clenching your cheeks if you're holding a Lucas Alexander ticket here, because we've seen him hurt. We've seen him knocked out. And Grad's game, man. He's game to come in there and trade shots. So I kind of like violence in this spot, if I'm being honest. I think at some point, someone's got to bite down on the mouthpiece and go for it. And both guys have power. Both guys can get hit and hurt. I'm gonna lean with cardio. I'm gonna lean with experience and the technical striking abilities in Alexander, but I am not confident whatsoever.
Oh boy, that is a butthole pucker pick if I've ever seen one, man.
Yep.
You got to trust that guy to stay long and avoid the power, and that's not easy to do. I don't hate it though, because I honestly, man, I feel like Bogdan Grad might be a little bit smoke and mirrors. I talked about how
too, like he's a little, I don't know, he's not real flowy. He's real tense.
Yeah, and like I said, everything he does explodes, spinning back fist, and then random like big sweeping leg kicks, the ones that like take you off balance after throwing it. You know what I mean? I think those are the types of strikes that are gonna get exposed by somebody who's cleaner. I could see Lucas Alexander winning 8 minutes of this fight and then just getting clipped. It's so nasty. But it should be fun. It should be fun. I'm glad we agree on violence. I think the under probably looks good. And man, I'm picking Alexander, but I'm not betting this one, guys. I'm sorry, not Alexander. I'm picking Grad, but I will not bet this fight because, if I was going to do anything, my fade the 2 times Contender Series angle would force me to play the other side of that. So I'm way too conflicted. I'm staying off. And shout out Ash. Clint is the greatest human on the interweb. I appreciate you, Ash. Thanks for being here for a live show. If you guys ever needed some entertaining card collecting and or betting tailing service, as you can see in the name, not family friendly necessarily, but Ash is a fun follow and a good person and a Vikings fan, I will say. So check her out. Next fight up, you guys. We have got Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on Mayra Bueno Silva. Shitara herself. Nolan, I am very frustrated with my girl, Mayra Bueno Silva. Very, very upset with my girl, Mayra Bueno Silva, because I had futures on her to be the champion of her weight class at the end of last year, 135. And she fell to Rocky Pennington. I should have trusted, I've been the sole and only Rocky Pennington fan and backer for the last 5-6 years. So I should have stuck with my girl, Rocky. But I really thought that the front chokes and the submission offense of Mayra Bueno Silva was just going to be a little bit too much to handle for her. I was wrong, and she came prepared. And we've seen the real hole in the game of Shitara is the cardio. Time and time again. She's got the floor is lava level BJJ, man. Like, if you hit the ground with her, she will snatch your pinky toe and snap it in half so fast. Everyone is just tapping super quick to this girl. Arm bars, leg locks. She scrambles well. She finds her way to the top. She's got great chokes. She's got that ninja choke, so she doesn't even have to be on the ground to submit you. I love her offense. And it seems like she's got a little bit of the horse meat going. It seems like she's on a little bit of the good stuff. Very well built, very powerful, very strong. but damn, she needs to get hooked up with the EPO because she's only got about 7 minutes of cardio. If you survive the early onslaught, she completely falls apart. She is the poster child for the embarrassing BJJ butt scoot. She's on her back. Come on, you come down here to me. She wants nothing to do with being on the feet. Now, in her last fight, she got stopped by Macy Chiasson, and I was frustrated about that one too, because I think I bet her that night as well. And it was a cut stoppage. So it wasn't like a real true TKO. I feel like she was going to beat Macy that night. I think eventually she would have found a way to sink something in. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know, if you get on the wrong side of those bounces as far as like the damage and the cuts goes, it seems like I've been on a lot of those recently. I could use a cut to go my way for once. But she's on a tough skid, and now she's dropping a weight class. She's cutting an extra 10 pounds. There's two schools of thought on this, right? So either she cuts down a weight class and it requires road work. It requires running. It requires cardio intensive game plans and training camps. So because she's moving down a weight class, it might make her more dangerous, not because of the extra physicality necessarily, which is, you know, also a positive. She might be bigger and stronger than these girls and bigger and stronger than they're used to. So she can be more effective at this weight class, but she also might have improved cardio because she has to get the weight off. The other side of that is she already has really bad cardio. And if this is a weight cut thing, where I can just suck an extra 10 pounds out of my body somehow by cutting what I'm eating or spending more time in the sauna, it might make that cardio worse. So I am very, very skeptical of this fight. I will be honest with you guys. We are 3 fights in. I don't have a bet. And I don't have a bet on a lot of these because a lot of them are like this, where it's extremely sketchy to me this week. Jasmine Jasudavicius is the exact opposite of Mayra Bueno Silva. She's got cardio for days. Now, she's a bully at this weight class, man. She is big. And when she first got to the UFC, I said that she was not a good fighter, and she simply was big. To some extent, I still stand by that. Like, she is not the most skilled or talented fighter we've seen on the roster, but she has really good ground and pound. Her striking game is improving, and she just bullies people around the cage, and she relies on that physicality and the cardio. And that's really something that takes her places in this weight class. And I think she's going to be a tough out for anybody at this weight class because of her ability to do that. And then once she does get the fight to the ground, she's legitimately skilled once it gets on the mat. Her ground and pound is absolutely nasty. She's got good submissions from there, and she just kind of tortures you to get you down to that point. So this fight really only goes 2 ways, in my opinion. Jazz is going to be looking to get this fight to the ground. You do not want to get Mayra Bueno Silva to the ground. Nobody wants to get Mayra Bueno Silva to the ground. So we are going to get the fight that Mayra Bueno Silva wants in this one. It's all about whether or not Jasmine gets caught early. Because if she's going for an elbow and she leaves the wrong arm extended a little too far, she can get that thing snapped off, and Mayra's going to get another first-round submission. If she rolls the wrong way or gets her weight off balance, Jasmine's knee could get hyperextended, and Mayra's taking home another knee bar. If she shoots in for a takedown and times it wrong, ninja choke. Like, we're going to be grappling, and it's either going to be a Mayra Bueno Silva first-round sub where she looks like she is amazing and she's renovated her game and she's brand new life at a new weight class, and frankly, she might be better at this weight class because she's a bigger size bully now, or she's going to get her ass whooped. If she doesn't get that early sub, Jazz is going to drag her carcass around the cage for about 12 minutes until the referee has mercy on Mayra Bueno's soul and steps in and goes, okay, we're losing ratings by the minute because no one wants to see this woman get beaten any further on the ground. Like, those are really the only 2 ways that this fight is going to happen. It's just a matter of which one do you want and where do you see the value. Right now, Jazz is a minus 225 favorite, you guys. Mayra Bueno Silva is the plus 185 underdog. I think the round 1, round 2 sub props are the way to look when they drop for Mayra Bueno Silva, because she will not be catching Jazz at the end of this fight. Now that I've said that, it's going to happen. She's going to suffer in round 3 now that I've said that. But the deeper this fight goes, the better it is for Jasmine. And all this comes down to is, do you trust Jasmine's defensive capabilities to survive not getting submitted? My guy Uncle Wheezy said, I bet fight doesn't go the distance at plus 250. How is that plus money, Wheezy? How is that possibly plus money. This is an under if I've ever seen one, and women's MMA unders can be treacherous, but with the firepower on both sides of this one, I have a hard time seeing Jasmine play it safe for 15 minutes and get a win. I think at some point she either gets her game going enough to get a finish or slips up in there. I like what doesn't go the distance as well. I would be looking at violence again on this one.
Man, there's a few things on each side that just that are kind of confusing me a little bit and making it tougher to pick. You know, when I look at Jasmine, like she didn't really start her UFC career off as a finisher. You know, she went to I don't know how many decisions in a row. I think 6 decisions in a row, was fighting decent competition, the Tracy Cortezes, Miranda Maverick. But all of a sudden, she's kind of starting to finish these girls. And if you don't have cardio and you don't take damage very well, that round 3 is kind of where she strikes. She did it against Priscilla Cachueta with the Anaconda choke in round 3. You know, she kind of beat Fatima Climb up, took her down, and dominated that fight. But in round 3 against Ariana De Silva or Ariane Lipski, finds the Darce choke after Lipski just wanted nothing else to do with the fight. You know, she
hasn't been the same since she got rid of the Queen of Violence name, man.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, she had a phenomenal performance against Casey O'Neill. I was there live for that one and had her as a dog. But since then, man, just hasn't looked great.
It's the reverse of divorced Dern, man. Like the yin and the yang, the balance of the universe. Dern gets divorced and gains all her powers, and she gets married, turns into De Silva, and loses everything.
Exactly. And, you know, it's kind of the opposite style that, you know, Bueno Silva wants to fight. I mean, Bueno Silva, if she can go out there and you're going to try to wrestle her, she's going to have opportunities to find chokes. If he goes to the ground, she's good everywhere off of her back. I mean, we saw her submit Jillian Robertson by submission in round 1, but we also saw her get taken down 3 times and go to a draw with Montana De La Rosa. So she's so up and down. As of recently, you know, 2-fight losing streak and then the no contest, but she's fighting Raquel Pennington, who is the champ, Macy Chasson, who is a savage, and she looked good in that fight until she didn't, man. She took some damage and wanted no more. I think she does have a chance to finish this fight against Jasmine if Jasmine goes to the wrestling. But if Jasmine keeps it on the feet, I think she just survives the first round and a half, and she's going to be able to inflict her own damage. The takedowns will come easier. And if she ends up on top of Bueno Silva, a tired Bueno Silva, I think Jasmine's going to do exactly what she's done to her last 2 opponents that she finished. So, yeah, I think Bueno Silva, super dangerous, super talented early, but man, she's got a little quit in her. And I know she's fought in the higher level of competition recently, but we've seen it in fights in the past too. I mean, Manon Farrow took her down twice, Montana De La Rosa 3 times, once by Wu Yanan, once by Edgar. So, I mean, she's able to get taken down, especially late in fights. I think Jasmine's just too much of a junkyard dog. I don't think you're going to finish her. She's going to go to sleep. I don't see Jasmine tapping or getting knocked out. So, you know, if she survives some onslaught in the first round, I think Jasmine's going to be super live in the next 2. But don't really like the minus 225, especially in such a volatile fight where both these girls for women's MMA are dangerous. But you know, I do like either those first 2 rounds for Silva or round 2, round 3 for Jasmine for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah, man, I like it. I think it's round 1 sub for Mayra Bueno Silva, or it's round 2, round 3 TKO for Jazz, because I think so. Mayra actually has some nasty striking. She's big, she's strong, she's got a decent body kick, really good clinch. That's something we didn't talk about. Lots of knees, lots of elbows. I think she KOs a lot of people, just not Jazz. Jazz is a junkyard dog. She's not going anywhere unless you put her to sleep. So I think it's got to be a sub from Mayra Bueno Silva. And then similarly, I think you're completely right about Mayra Bueno Silva, and I hate putting my money on people who have that quit in them, because I do think she's got that quit in her. And Jazz will make you quit, and she won't sub you, because Mayra Bueno will know how to defend the position. She'll know how to get her arm back. She'll know how to defend, and she'll cause a scramble. So you just elbow the shit out of her. You know what I mean? So, like, It just makes sense to me that it's either sub, KO, or, you know, God forbid, there's some way this thing squeezes to a decision. But I think that's probably the rarer outcome for this fight, just considering how dangerous both these women's are.
And you know what's interesting? You know, with Bueno Silva dropping down a weight class, normally, you know, sometimes these fighters, it takes them, you know, they have to get in shape. They have to have better cardio to cut those last 10 pounds. but she's not going up against a smaller fighter in the division. Jasmine is going to be an inch taller, and she's still going to have 2 inches of reach on her. Like, this is like one of the biggest, flyweights you could get in the women's division. So I don't know how much of an advantage she'll have, even if she does come in really good shape. Jasmine's still going to be tough to bully around in there.
Bro, that's the funniest thing. Like, how'd they give her the biggest chick at this weight class? Like, she cuts down, and it's like she's supposed to have a size and a strength advantage in her new home, and they're just like, okay, we'll give you the biggest, baddest bitch on the block. And I mean that respectfully, Jazz. They give you the biggest, meanest chick they got. They're like, all right, like, you wanted a size advantage? Let's see what you got, girl, what you made of. Welcome to your new home. Raw Torque says MBS plus 3.5. The only reason I don't like that is because if Jazz finishes, the 3.5 is dead. The 3.5, the 5.5, those plus spread numbers that you can see like on DraftKings and stuff like that, those are good for decisions. So either MBS wins the fight outright, which I really don't see her winning a decision ever. I think she's extremely reliant on a finish in this spot. I would rather just take the money line or the inside the distance and get better numbers at that. And then you risk, if Jazz does get going, that MBS may end up getting finished in like the third, and then your bet is still ruined at that point. So, man, do you have an opinion on that? Do you play these spreads or anything like that pretty often?
I do. I actually played Island Perez's last card just because I knew, she was going to get beat later in the fight if she got beat.
Such a good spot, man.
I mean, it was chalked a little bit. It was minus 160, but I didn't think she was going to get finished because Carol Host, she doesn't really finish anybody. And I thought she could get the wrestling going early. She won outright. I was kind of pissed I didn't play that plus 200 or whatever it was, but a win's a win.
Yeah.
But in this fight, I could see that the problem with that bet for me here is that Jasmine, if she does get a takedown in the first round, if Bueno Silva just tries to play off of her back and Jasmine's hip to it, I mean, you kind of lose round one right off the bat. And I really don't think Bueno Silva's winning round 2 or 3.
Correct. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you on that one.
I think you're better off on the money line if you're playing that spot. So
in this particular case, I would agree. In a spot where it's someone like Aileen where they can wrestle gas and then hang on, that's where I'm looking for that plus 3.5.
Exactly. Yep.
Good call. All right. Hey, shout out my guy Andrew with the $2 dono saying Clint the GOAT. I will tell you guys something. This is really cool. I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, you guys. This is episode 300. I have been doing the Die Hard MMA podcast now for over 6 years, and this show is actually the 300th episode of the podcast. So I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty hyped on that. And because we've decided to spread our wings and fly solo, I just got set up on my own personal YouTube channel where we got enough views, where we got enough numbers that I can actually try to monetize my content on my own, without a sponsor channel or anything like that. And every time anybody's ever donated anything to me, especially through like the YouTube chat, it's always gone to my sponsors. So like, again, shout out Pub Sports Radio. When I was with them, they had the super chat on, people would donate and stuff like that. But I never saw a penny of that because that was the way the deal worked, right? Like anything that came through the YouTube channel went to them, and then they just had their deal direct with me. So I never saw anything from the tips. Andrew, you are the first person to donate or tip me on my YouTube channel where I'm actually going to be the one that receives a piece of it. So massive shout out to you, my guy. Thank you very much. Big ups for UFC 300 and being the first guy to tip me. So really appreciate you. Thank you very much. I do want to shout out to Clooney X says, starting from the beginning, thought I'd give out a cheers live. I'm going to shout you out, my guy, because in about 30, 40 minutes or so, you'll hear this. And thank you very much for being here live. Appreciate you. Let's see here. We've got, you know what? How do I get rid of bots and shit like that on my Twitch? Because if this guy starts spamming me and I can't control it, I'm going to be real pissed from the StreamYard here. All right. Getting caught up. Lots of people sorry, I got behind on the chat here, you guys, because I'm rambling. Thank you, Wheezy. Shout out you, buddy. Thank you for being here for episode 300. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all of you guys in here. And Andrew with the double dono. Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate you. All right, guys, we got some more fights to talk about the next sketchy fight on this card is going to be Terrance McKinney taking on Damir Hadzovic. Bro, I legitimately forgot about Damir Hadzovic. Like, they run that clip where Moicano taps him and he gets pissed off. He's like, you shouldn't have tapped me then. Like, he gets all mad about it. They run that clip and I'll just watch that every once in a while and be like, oh yeah, that happened. But I forgot it was Damir. Like, I'm watching Moicano. I'm watching the funny interaction. I forgot that Hadzovic was signed by the UFC. And here he is. He's actually still employed. And I don't know what's going on because we have not seen him for years. The man is 38 years old now at this point. He hasn't fought since 2022. And I remember that night extremely clearly because I had a big, fat bet on Mark Diakiese that night. D1 Diakiese, baby. And I bet the submission prop, it was 10-1. It was 10 to freaking 1. And he wiped the floor with Hadzovic. But never once did he even try to finish the fight. It was the most boring, most dull fight you have ever seen. Bisping called him out after that fight on the microphone in front of everybody and was like, why didn't you try to finish him? And Diakiese was like, I'm just trying to get back on the winning streak, man. And it's like, okay, like, from the fighter's perspective, save your job, get the win. I understand. I'm not going to knock you for that. But like, you save your job these days more with a finish than you do with hanging on for dear life. So I was really pissed off because Diakiese could have gotten a sub and could have cashed me a 10-1 ticket at any point in time during that fight and just chose not to. Hadzovic can't grapple. He's one of these guys who's mid everywhere. He's a decent striker. He's got decent power. He's a tough guy. He can take a shot. So on the feet, he's not necessarily a guy you want to mess around with, but you can out finesse him. And if you take him down, it's like taking candy from a baby. His best win is Yancy Medeiros. Like, this guy hasn't had a relevant UFC win or fight for that matter in 10 years. So the UFC is just done with Damir Hadzovic. And as much as Terrance McKinney has been up and down, man, this kid is exactly what the organization is looking for. He is exactly what Dana White's Contender Series is after. People who will step in there, bite down on the mouthpiece, swing as hard as they can, and kill or be killed. Terrance McKinney is a massive glass cannon. I actually think with his athleticism, with his speed, with his wrestling, with his finishing ability, like, Terrance McKinney still could potentially be a star, but he needs to take time away from the sport. He needs to go get a coach and don't take a fight for a year. Just take a year off, bro. Train, work your ass off, patch up the skills, patch up the defense, because right now he doesn't know how to have a 15-minute fight. He only knows how to brawl. And he's a 50-50 in every single brawl because he doesn't have a whole lot of durability and has essentially no defense. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage here in this spot. I've got to pick him to win because I think Damir Hadzovic is well past his prime and was always a bit of a bum. But bro, minus 450 on Terrance McKinney? Are you kidding me? That is the type of price tag that you should be ashamed of. Like, don't get me wrong, he's winning this fight. This is one of those ones where, don't get me wrong, he's winning. But we just saw potentially next level generational talent Peyton Talbot drop a fight as a minus 1,400 favorite. Okay. I could talk for hours on the whole Peyton Talbot situation. Don't hate me. He'll be back. He'll be better than ever. He's still going to take gold. He will still whoop Sean O'Malley's ass. Don't at me. But this kid cannot be a minus 450 favorite to anybody right now, man. It's T-Rex. He could get popped on the jaw once and it's over. I really think he's going to wrestle, man. I think he's going to take down Damir. I think he'll take the easy path to victory. And I think he'll get a submission victory. It's something we haven't seen from T-Rex for a long time, is him flexing his grappling skills. We know they're there. It's just been a minute. So I kind of like T-Rex by sub in this spot, but that price tag is insanely stupid. And I can't justify like parlaying a minus 500 T-Rex. It just ain't going to happen.
Yeah, man. Well, I like what you said, that he should have taken a year off, gotten a coach, and kind of went from there, because Terrance McKinney is one of the most gifted athletes in the UFC. Like, I think that's kind of to his own detriment. Like, I think he goes in there extremely confident. He moves well. He hits hard. He can submit you, but he just hasn't had the proper training for MMA. And we've seen it kind of come back and bite him in the butt because I mean, the times he's getting finished is just really bad. I was at his last fight against Hebovix, and I was actually sitting right. You know how he got folded up and sat down back against the octagon. I was right
nasty.
with his back, like in line with his back. So when it happened, I'm like, wait, what happened? He's sitting up. And then you look up at the big screen and he's just kind of sleeping there.
Dude, that was some anime stuff. Like if he had hit a brick
crazy.
wall, it would have been like destroyed behind him. He'd be like sitting there in the rubble.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, it's just like, it sucks to see because he's so fun to watch. Super talented. He's going to beat all these guys like Brendan Marat and Mike Breeden. You know, he beats all those guys because of the athleticism and the explosiveness. He's going to either catch you or he's going to take you down, and he's got some good submission skills. It just kind of it depends on where Damir Hadzovic falls. I don't really think he's a guy at this stage in his career, being off 2 years, who's going to come out here and just spark McKinney. He's never kind of been that guy. But, you know, if he can survive, he makes it interesting. I just really don't think he survives, if I'm being honest. I think McKinney, being that he just got knocked out really badly, knowing that he has the wrestling skills, I think he just goes out and gets one takedown in the first round, and I think he ends the round on top if he doesn't finish it. Maybe he can conserve a little bit of energy like that and doesn't have to go through you know, these big explosive striking exchanges and taking body shots and getting takedown stuffed where that makes him gas out. I think if he does land a takedown early in the fight, maybe he gets to last a little bit longer if he doesn't find the submission. So, but you know, if I'm betting on it, I do think it's Terrance McKinney with a finish in round 1 or 2. I think he wins the fight. It's just, I mean, I've seen this story too many times though to be confident to put my money on it. He just gets finished in every way possible, especially later in fights. Love watching him. I think he should win this fight. I don't think Hadzovic, like you said, I don't really think he has what it takes to come out here and spark Terrance McKinney. But you never know with McKinney, man. But McKinney's going to be my pick. I'm excited for this one, though.
I am right there with you, man. You and I are in the exact same boat. And my guy Dirty Reg in the chat is asking the good questions. Is McKinney smart enough to do as you say? And you know what, man? This is Carol Hossa all over again for me because I parlayed up her dumbass back at UFC 311. And I'm telling you guys, I can only tell you how the fight should play out. I can tell you where they have the advantages, and we can try to make an educated bet. I can't get my ass in the cage and fight for them. If you give me an Xbox 360 controller, and yes, you got to go back to the 360 because I was a Halo savant. You got to go old school. But if you give me an Xbox 360 controller and let me play these fighters out, we're winning. Okay? We're winning. Umar beats Marab 3-2. Carol Hossa leg kick TKOs Aileen Perez, and Terrance McKinney submits Damir Hadzovic. If I get to control them with my controller, okay, it's happening. That's where the edges are and where they were. But once the cage door closes, these guys get to make their own decisions. And I'm not the one that actually gets to write their game plan for them. So that is exactly why we're saying don't lay minus 450 on T-Rex Terrance McKinney because can't really trust the guy. Dixon Sider knows what's up. Sub special. That will absolutely be a leg in the submission special parlay is T-Rex by sub. That's on the card. That's happening.
I mean, because you look at Hadzovic's takedown defense, it's like 34%. And you know, McKinney he does have that wrestling background and explosiveness where he should be able to get this guy down with ease. It's just and I think he'll know it too. He can't mess around and try to, this fight can't go into late round 2, early round 3. Like if he takes him down, I think he's looking for the sub.
Yeah. No, completely agree with you, man. Completely agree. Yeah. And, you know, the other thing is Damir Hadzovic is tough, like we talked about. He's only been knocked out once. So as much as T-Rex does have that nasty power and a 3-inch reach advantage, I kind of feel like club and sub is on the table. Like he could knock him down, but not clean knock him out. And then again, we're on the ground. And what do you do once you're down there? The sub is the easy path, in my opinion. So yeah, I do think that's the one. All right. Jared TG says Xbox 360. You got to go all the way back to 2012, man. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Bro, when I was in high school, senior year for Christmas, I got the original Xbox for Christmas. That's how old my ass is. So I could go even further back if you want me to. But Xbox 360 is where we're going to end up these days. Between you guys and my daughter, I don't have the PS5. So it's all keyboard gaming for me at this point. The Xbox 360 was my glory days for sure. All right. Next fight up, man. We've got Shamil Gaziev taking on Thomas Peterson. Thomas the Train himself. Big old sloppy heavyweights. And as you would expect, we got big old sloppy heavyweight prices, right? You've got a big favorite here taking on a relatively disappointing newcomer. Shamil Gadzhiev is minus 380 plus 300 to come back on Thomas Peterson. And this is another one that's almost exactly like the last fight to me, man. I'm going to just bury the lead here. I'm picking Shamil Gadzhiev to win this fight, but I hate this price tag. Like, Gadzhiev is old, dude. He is not a young guy. So he's getting into MMA late. He's very athletic, but he doesn't have a well-rounded MMA game. They tried to fast track him. He got exposed extremely quickly. And now he's kind of reeling at this point, right? Like, he's 13-1, 34 years old. It's going to be downhill from here. Don't get me wrong. But getting diced the way he did by Jairzinho, that almost slams the door on like his title fight hopes in the UFC. Good solid bounce back win against Dontel Mays. He did exactly what he needed to do. He showed a little bit of improvement. He showed what he can do. He's really physically strong. His grappling is good, getting on top of people. He's very good at it. And the one thing I actually think maybe like his biggest thing, his head position is really solid. So when he like grinds people into the fence, he knows exactly how to lean into them with like his bald ass head so that he makes sure they're carrying his weight. They're uncomfortable. They're pressured. He does that extremely well. And I don't know if Thomas Peterson can stop that. Now, Thomas Peterson is 9-2. He's 29 years old. So even though he's been a little disappointing, definitely far more in his prime, a lot more upside for this guy moving forward. You know, he's a decent wrestler, and I thought he was going to be a guy that we could count on to like get in there and shoot takedowns and stuff like that. But then in his first couple of fights, he really has been more of a striker car crash type of fighter, man. It's like he charges face first into his opponent and just hopes to like smash into them and knock them off balance and then level change or then grab a single from there or something like that. But he just absorbs so much damage running straight into his opponents. He's a decent wrestler, but he doesn't know how to set his takedowns up. Frankly, I don't know if that's going to work against Shamil. Because if he gets in on a bag takedown, you're going to have a big man sprawling and on top of you all of a sudden. If he gets in and tries to car crash with this guy's got strong hips. He is explosive. I think he can chuck him off. So I think Shamil Gadzhiev is going to win a greasy-ass split decision here. So you probably should take a flyer on Thomas Peterson at 3-1 because the fight will be close. I like, again, no totals for me to look at as of right now. But when it comes out, I want to see the over 1.5. It's probably going to be chalked. But I would look at this fight to go the distance. I would look at the over 1.5. If the price is decent on a 2.5, maybe look at that as well. Because I think this is going to be a really ugly heavyweight fight. And I think both these guys are going to have a hard time controlling their opponent, which will kind of get rid of the opportunity for a finish. I know they're both finishers. You know, you look at their fights up until this point, they both have gotten their opponents out of there. In the majority of their fights, round 1, round 2, ground and pound, TKO, both of them do that, right? But I don't know that either of these guys is going to get stuck under the other long enough for that to happen. So I'm kind of looking at overs. And yeah, KB is absolutely right in the chat. Gadzhiev completely gave up against Jairzinho. The difference is Jairzinho would completely destroy Thomas Peterson. Like, it's completely different stylistic matchup. He's such a better striker than someone like Thomas Peterson. Gadzhiev is not going to be afraid of the striking from Thomas Peterson. And it's a 15-minute fight, not a 25-minute fight. So yeah, man, greasy split decision heavyweight for me, but I will side with the former volleyball player in Shamil Gadzhiev.
Yeah, I think this fight is going to be a lot of these two locked up with each other against the cage, if I'm being honest. And yeah, Gadzhiev is, let's see, 6'4" compared to Peterson 6'1". I mean, both guys have the wrestling experience in the background. You know, for Gadzhiev, I'll start with Gadzhiev. I was at the fight against Martin Buday at UFC 296, and I took him by round 2 and round 3 TKO, and it was plus 900 for round 2, and we cashed it. And I think a lot of people got really high on him there just because Martin Buday had never lost in the UFC. And, you know, Buday, he'd been in some close fights, but for him to finish him like that, everyone was super impressed. They expected Gadzhiev to be this real dominant wrestler. He went in there and boxed up Buday and looked phenomenal doing it. And Budai, got hurt. It looked like he damaged his eye a little bit in the first, came out in the second, and Gadzhiev looked like he had a ton of energy left and went out and got the finish. Goes up there against Rozenstruik and, just can't hang with that level of striking, can't really stick with the takedowns, gets tired, gets beat up, and that's it. And that's a style I think you have to beat Gadzhiev. You have to have a good jab to keep him at distance. You have to have a good leg kicks, front kicks, invest in the body. I don't really think Thomas Peterson is a true mixed martial artist to the fact that I don't think he's going to come out here and have that type of game. If he's smart, maybe he throws that big left hand to the body over and over in the first round. And like I said, in the wrestling exchanges, I kind of think it's a wash. Peterson's short, compact. I believe he's a JUCO national champion in wrestling. But, MMA wrestling and that style of wrestling is completely different. I think he needs a little more experience, a little more octagon time to kind of, iron out that MMA wrestling for him. And, Gadzhiev is a big boy to take down. I always laugh when they talk about these wrestling heavyweights because everybody's so big. Like, it's got to be hard to get a hold of a single leg. Their legs are so big, or get your hands locked around their butt to take them down. It's tough. And on the feet, I think Gadzhiev is going to be the better striker. I do just worry about Peterson clipping him once, and one big shot maybe kind of changes the tides, and Gadzhiev starts breathing a little heavier. And then Peterson's the one putting him up against the cage and landing knees and elbows. And it's just a sloppy, ugly clinch fest that, like you said, turns into a split decision. So, yeah, plus 300-ish. I kind of want to take a flyer on Peterson. I just don't know if I've seen enough out of him that makes me confident or even wanting to bet on this fight at all. So
yeah. Now, Sick Montana 13, I was looking at Peterson plus 3.5. Guys,
yeah, there you go.
This is exactly the kind of fight we're talking about. We're saying this thing might go to a split decision. We're saying this thing might look like a coin flip, and you've got one guy that's plus 300 on one side. At plus 3.5, all you need is one round on all three judges' scorecards for that thing to hit. If it makes it all 15, if there's not a finish, if Peterson can just push Gadzhiev up against the cage for one freaking round for the judges to you win that bet. You can lose a 29-28 decision and cash this ticket. This is exactly the kind of fight where I think plus 3.5 is kind of the way to go. I like that. That's a good look.
Let me just say for the plus 3.5s on this card is that they're in Saudi Arabia, and we got the EVs and Gadzhiev and Imavovs and all those guys. So you just got to be careful because it could be a close fight, and then you get 29-28, 29-28, and someone throws a 30-27 in there that shouldn't, and it screws your ticket. So just be careful on those. But I imagine a Peterson, if he's plus 300, I imagine the plus 3.5 will be at least slight plus money.
Yeah,
I know it's
plus 150 or something like that, probably.
Yeah, because this is a plus 300 that take a look at when the plus 3.5s come out. That'll be a good telltale sign what the books are thinking, because they have them at plus 300 on the money line. But if it's the spread's closer to plus, like you said, plus 150, I think the books are thinking that fight might be a little closer than a plus 300 minus 380. So yeah, I think you keep your eye out on it.
I like it. And especially, man, that's like my favorite thing on the plus 3.5s. If you're getting plus money on the plus spread, count me in. If you're laying minus 125 on it, it's again, if that's the move, then that's the move. But if you can get plus money and have the judges' decisions in your back pocket, that's a sweet spot to hit. I'm glad you mentioned it because I know we brought it up at the beginning of the fight. This is UFC Saudi Arabia, but man, those Phantom 30-27 cards, there have been 2 or 3 of them every single card.
Yeah.
For the last 6-8 events. You'll get what is obviously a 29-28 decision, and the last judge always hits it 30-27, and it's just unjustifiable. It's straight up corruption at this point. Some guy goes in knowing that's the fighter I need to pick to win, and just fills out 30-27 for that fighter without doing a damn thing, and they spend the rest of the fight watching their phone. You know what I mean? It's awful, and it's corruption, and there's nothing we can do about it. But you have to watch out for it in this exact kind of a case. You're not wrong. So it's definitely a good call out. And it's funny because I forgot to mention that. That's part of why I ended up on the Shamil side, where I was like, man, if this thing does go to a split, Shamil's going to be the guy that gets his hand raised. They're not going to rob Shamil in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, you got to watch out for that. We've got Traindale asking, who are the judges? And the problem is we don't know. Sometimes the UFC will release like the main event judges for pay-per-views, for title fights, but they do it the day before. Like there's almost no time for you to pivot and be able, like in football, where like, this guy, the Eagles have covered 7 straight games with this referee in their games. Like we don't know that shit. They don't give us that info. So unfortunately, there's just no way of knowing until like right before the fight happens. And even then it's just really not enough information because the judges are, they've got their heads so far up their asses, they don't know what they're doing. So it's not like you can't even necessarily be like, well, Adelaide Bird, she likes Brazilian women, so slight edge here to Mayra Bueno Silva. It's not that clear and cut. Like so they make up whatever they want to do on the night. So we don't have that edge, unfortunately. All right, guys, do me a favor and smash that like button for me. Share out the show, whatever social media platform you are on. We've got over 500 live viewers with us here tonight. We took a break week last week. We got to remind the algorithm, remind the internet that we are here and this is where we're going to be at moving forward. So if you don't mind, head to your social media platform of choice and share this show out. We got to add a new wrinkle, by the way, guys. I did sign up for Blue Sky. So if any of you are over on Blue Sky as well, there's no way I've noticed to connect the streaming stuff over there yet. I don't think, at least. So if there is and you know about it, share that with me because I don't know about it. But if you're one of those people migrating to like the new social media platforms, I'm going to be there too. So be sure to give me a look up over there, give me a follow, and we'll keep the good times rolling. Next up, you have got Muhammad Naimov, and he takes on Kaan Ofli. Weird fight, man. Weird fight. This one seems like another one where it's set up for the Imavov to go ahead and win this one, right? Like you've got Ofli, who just really hasn't done anything so far in the UFC. 0-1, 31 years old, fills in on short notice and got kind of sparked in his last fight. Don't really have a great read on him, unfortunately. Like I wish I could tell you more about him, but anytime you get somebody who's 30 plus years old making their UFC debut, like just more often than not, it's not going to pan out well. I know there's some outliers where guys show up and maybe they should have been here all along, or they really just put it together right at 29-30 and they look incredible. This guy competed on The Ultimate Fighter, makes his UFC debut and gets TKO'd in the second round. He had strong underhooks. He looks like he's a little on the short side, got that, short man, tanky type of build. He reminds me a little bit of Ludovic Klein as far as like his look, not the way he fights, but visual. He reminds me of Ludovic Klein. But I just haven't really been overly impressed with him. He seems like he's got I hate to, I'm sitting here on the couch. He's got kind of a basic MMA game. You know what I mean? He does nothing that jumps off the page at me. Muhammad Naimov is 30 years old. He's coming off a loss to Felipe Lima, one where we were very, very correctly suspicious of how good Felipe Lima might possibly be. That kid is going to be an absolute stud. So I don't really hold that against him. He's very tough, very good wrestling, heavy top game, durable. He can get clipped, and we've seen him come back from that and get himself back into a fight. This guy's a hammer. He likes to really just do everything with force and pressure and look to end the fight. Comes forward swinging nothing but power shots, and he hits hard. I like Muhammad Naimov. He's a guy that I think you can bet on, and in the right places you can make some cash. I expect he probably can knock out a guy like Ofli here in this spot. And if he can't finish him, I think he'll just be too physical for him. I think he'll be able to win the grappling exchanges. And if he's in the driver's seat, I expect Naimov to finish more often than not. So I'm saying it's going to be Naimov by knockout. I could see a Naimov decision as well. Minus 250. Naimov's not really the guy I'm looking to get behind minus 250 price tags on. But I don't know that Ofli has much of a path to victory, man. And that's kind of the thing that I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, put my square hat back on, right? Make that 2-leg parlay that's for sure going to cash. I think Naimov might be a guy that wins this week. Like just straight up. I have a hard time finding a path for Ofli to actually take this fight. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's tough for Ofli. I wish we've seen more of him. I mean, I know we saw him on the Ultimate Fighter, and he looked pretty good, had some banger fights, and comes into the UFC against the Marian Santos. And I think, it's early to tell, but I think Santos is going to be a killer in the UFC. Like, I think he's with the right team, the right coaches, and he's super talented on the feet. I think he was just outclassed that night. Ofli was outclassed that night. And I think that is where you got to be careful this week. I think we could see a different Ofli in this spot against a Naimov who, has been submitted before. He does hit hard, and he's a good fighter, but we saw him get submitted against Lima in his last fight. Ofli does have a few submissions on his record, and he's got that wrestling game. Like you were saying, who he reminds you of. He kind of reminds me of that Chad Mendez build, short, stocky wrestler with some overhand rights and things like that. And seems like it's kind of his game. So I don't think he's knocking Naimov out. And I don't know if he's got the length and the lanky arms and stuff like that to where he's going to lock up a sub on a guy like Naimov here, kind of like a Lima was able to. But he's got to mind his P's and Q's because Naimov is a good striker. He's just coming off a really bad knockout loss. Ofli is. So, I'm not really confident enough to take the dog at this price. If Ofli gets up there at plus 300, plus 350, maybe you take a flyer. But I think it's just another fight. He kind of gets outclassed, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's his striking is phenomenal for mixed martial arts. Maybe he's able to wrestle with Naimov for the first round until Naimov kind of figures it out and then kind of starts taking over. So, yeah, I'm on the Naimov side here. Not really betting him at this price. Maybe you look at inside the distance because, Ofli, if you go back and watch that Santos knockout, it was bad. Like it was pretty nasty. Completely froze him. That's the things you got to look out for, though.
Absolutely. And again, nothing's guaranteed in these fights, right? Like once they get in there, they're throwing fists and knees, so anything can happen. But it seems like the UFC goes, "Oh, cool, like you're not that good and you can get knocked out. So let's give you a power puncher in Saudi Arabia." And frankly, guys, the Tajikistan fighters, they're kind of getting the push. We've talked about this. I got to switch here, man. We've talked about this. We've put the tinfoil cap on for this one before. They like the Tajikistan fighters. There just aren't enough of them. There's not enough of these guys for the UFC. So the one or two they've got, the small handful, they're putting them in really good fights. They're putting them in really good positions. The only reason that Naimov fought a guy that he could lose to in his last fight was because it was short notice. They had to save the fight. And this absolute Brazilian stud steps up on short notice and gives him the business. They wouldn't have booked that fight pre-flop. They wouldn't have put him in that position originally. So I think this is a spot where the UFC is trying to get Tajikistan back on track. They're giving him a fighter that they don't believe in, that's going to go 0-2 in the organization and probably give him a highlight. So yeah, man, I like the KO prop here.
Here's another thing for Naimov. He came into the UFC, I think it was short notice against Jamie Mullarkey. And if it wasn't, like at that point, Jamie Mullarkey wasn't the Jamie Mullarkey we know now with the no chin and getting knocked out all the time. Jamie Mullarkey was, beating Michael Johnson's and Devontae Smith and lost to Ziam by decision, Brad Riddell decision, and had that one, TKO against Jalen Turner, who's a beast. And so he comes in here as a massive underdog against Mullarkey and sparks him in that second round, just completely, right down the middle with the right hand, knocks him out. And then from there, Jamie Mullarkey, gets knocked out badly by Nasrat Hakparas, who doesn't have a lot of knockouts, and gets demolished by Mauricio Hufi, who's a stud too. So Naimov kind of started those chin issues, I think, for Jamie Mullarkey. So he does hit hard. You're getting a guy in Ofli coming off a bad knockout. I kind of like that KO prop the more and more I think of it.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. And hopefully we would be getting somewhere in the ballpark of plus money. I mean, it's probably going to be like an even money situation, but yeah, man. I will tell you, that is, I got to pat myself on the back again. I haven't had a lot of great calls recently, you guys, but when Naimov fought Jamie Mullarkey, he was the one that I was like, look, do not parlay Jamie Mullarkey here. Like that, we didn't know for certain at that point that he had the chin concerns, but I was like, we see flashes every now and again. Like, you don't want to pay big price tags on this guy. And I do kind of credit Naimov for creating the narrative of Chinny Jamie Mullarkey, right? Like everyone woke up after that fight. So good call, man, for sure. Good call. All right, guys, got to give some shout outs here real quickly. As always, first and foremost, Spectation Sports. If you guys want more MMA in your life, check out Spectation Sports. Using promo code DieHard will get you 20% off your initial subscription. They are growing basically weekly, you guys. We've got Legends of Combat 1. That's right, the first event from Legends of Combat coming up on February 1st. So you're going to be getting those elusive regional scene shows where there's lots of excitement, lots of finishes, some UFC veterans that have fallen off a little bit and are trying to work their way back to the UFC, the young, hungry up-and-comers, the guys we're going to be watching and betting on when it comes to Dana White's Contender Series. You'll find them here at Spectation Sports. So go ahead and use that promo code DieHard. Get a discount when you sign up for the services. It's awesome. Make sure you guys fill your life with more MMA because I know that's what you're about, same as me. Got to shout out the guys over at fightnumbers.com. The odds board they have is the best in the game. If you're a DFS player, the tools they have are unrivaled. Make sure you get signed up. There's a link in the description below. And again, promo code DieHard will get you a break on your subscription over there with Fight Numbers. And they have really helped me out as far as my DFS betting game goes. And they've got the pros over there who are legitimate pros. If you want to, purchase a subscription, get their picks, access to that kind of stuff. But a lot of their tools are really, really awesome. And you can't get better help from that anywhere else. Last, but certainly not least, you guys, bet openly. Peer-to-peer betting, 1% juice, saves you money, saves whoever takes your bet money. Everybody's making money. Everyone's saving money. We are coming up on nearly $10 million saved for gamblers all around the world, and you can bet on everything here. I will tell you guys, secret weapon, there's a bunch of states out there that do not have legalized sports gambling, and places like California, stuff like that, Bet Openly works there because they're, legal under like DFS settings and stuff like that. So they kind of fly under the radar. You need to have this in your arsenal. Real quick. I put out an announcement last week, you guys. All right. I'm going hard here. I need your help. And I'm probably definitely going to regret this. I need 100 signups on Bet Openly. 100. Okay. If I get 100 signups on Bet Openly by Saturday's fights, I will wax my chest. I'm going to do it on camera. I'm going to film the whole thing. You guys can laugh at me. Yes, 40-year-old virgin, Kelly Clarkson style. And I am a hairy bastard. So it will not be fun for me. But I am putting my dignity in this on the line. Get signed up for Bet Openly. And if we can get 100 of you to go ahead and do that using my link in the description below, I will wax my chest. So it's out there. That's a thing. That's a thing that's happening. And also, I've got good authority here. My guy Gino, the owner operator genius mind behind Bet Openly. We're gonna fill $5,000 worth of parlays. So if you sign up and you hit me, I'm gonna post up on social medias. Hit me up with your link once you've signed up. Put a bet out there. Put a parlay out there. We've got a $5,000 budget to make sure those guaranteed get picked up for your first play on Bet Openly. All right. So use the link in the description below, sign up for Bet Openly, and then tag me on social media with the bet that you need filled. And I don't know, like, 15, 25, $50 a pop, that kind of thing. We're not filling anybody's parlays for $2,000 or anything crazy like that, because we want to scatter it out for everybody. Let everybody get a piece of it. Don't be selfish. So if you have a parlay that you want to get picked up by the end of the week after signing up, tag me, get in there. And let's do this thing. Let's do this, man. I've never once in my life. Okay. Story time. When I was a kid, I got hairy early. All right. I got hairy quick. And it was real embarrassing, man, being on the football team. I was a starter on the football team. And so I didn't ever want to take my shirt off in the locker room because I was this scraggly, skinny white kid. Like I weighed 160 pounds soaking wet. But I started getting hair all over my chest, and it was really, really embarrassing because everybody else was clean as a whistle, right? So I tried to Nair. If you guys don't remember Nair, they had these really, really terrible commercials where they like sprayed the hair, sprayed Nair onto people, and then just like wiped it with a rug or with like a cloth or a paper towel, and the hair just came right off. And it was one of those just blatantly obvious lies of an infomercial that today we would smell the bullshit a mile away. But back then, nobody knew that you were allowed to lie on national television and it was totally fine, right? So we all thought Nair just worked phenomenally. So I go and buy Nair because I'm like, sweet, like, let me get this shit off me. I will look good. My girlfriend will appreciate it. The boys in the locker room won't make fun of me anymore because they used to, tell me I had a rug under my shirt and all this kind of shit. So I'm like, this is going to be great. And so I spray Nair all over my chest and I go ahead and give it a wipe. And dude, like 2 or 3 hairs came off. I was like, that is not what happened in the commercial. What do? You know what? I must have just not put enough on. So I go back and I start spraying again. Guys, that shit is acid. Like, I don't know what they actually put in it, but it burns like a motherfucker. And so I have just doused my entire chest with this shit. And as I'm wiping, it's like, so sure enough, some of the hair starts coming off, right? As I'm wiping with this stuff, but it's clumps. Like it's wherever the stuff has like gathered and pooled on my chest that piece will come off. So I'm like patchy all over my chest. And then I am red and I'm getting welty and it's like burning. I'm like, oh my God, like we could have made a claim. We legitimately could have like put in like a self-harm type of claim because I fucked up the skin on my chest and had these wounds and sores all over trying to get rid of the hair. And let me tell you, that was more embarrassing than the hair was when everybody found out about it because I had to take my shirt off for football practice the next day. Also, taking hits when the chest pads are like covering you here.
Oh,
not a good time. Not a good time.
Sweating and the chest pads. And,
the sweat was even worse. It took me like a good month to recover from this experience. And as you can tell, I've never mentally recovered from this experience. So I haven't shaved my body like, you know, trimming sometimes is necessary, but I haven't shaved my body since that experience, you guys. And I'm willing to do it for you. So pride is on the line and out the window. Sign up, get me 100 signups, tag Gino, let him know you're in, hit us up with whatever parlay you want us to book once you get deposited and signed up, and I will set up a camera and hell, you know, get myself waxed on camera for you guys to enjoy me and my discomfort. So yeah, that's what's up.
Gino's the man too. Yeah, I mean, there's no other book that you could literally send them an email and be like, hey, I'd like this changed about the website, or I'd like this prop added. Check back in an hour. It might be done. Like he listens to the people. You know, I've known Gino for a couple of years now. When I first started social media and got somewhat of a following, he's one of the first people I connected with. Solid dude, loves to help the people, and that's why he made Bet Openly. So
absolutely. Gino's one of the coolest guys around, and he gives a lot of people great opportunities. And he's been with me, you guys, as you know, for a while now. So like, not only just for like, hey, this is going to legitimately long-term benefit you being on the platform, but for your boy too. Because if I can get these signups by the end of the week here and go ahead and pull this thing off, that'll be good for my relationship long-term with Gino as well, who's one of the good guys in the space. They're few and far between, especially the operators. So he's someone we want to support. He's doing it for us. We should try to do it for him too. All right, guys, back to the fights. I am joined by my guy Nolan, the Parlay MMA, and we're breaking down UFC Saudi Arabia. Remember, morning fights. Wake up early on Saturday. Get your card locked in Friday night because you're not going to have time if you don't do it before you go to bed. Next fight, we've got Ziam, and he's taking on Mike Beast Boy Davis. Oh, boy. One of the best fights on the card here, man. And honestly, I'm struggling. I'm having a really tough time with this fight. I'm going to need your help because first, let's talk about the line. Ziam opens up as near 2-1 underdog, and money has just flooded in on Ziam. Now, I think some of that has to do with his highlight reel KO of a fan favorite in Matt Pravola in his last fight, right? Like nobody thought anything of Ziam, and he went out there and put work on the steamroller, puts a highlight reel knee KO together, looks amazing. People lost their shit about that one. So I think there is some recency bias where people are going, okay, the last thing I saw was this, right? Beast Boy is like a minus 200, minus 225 favorite. Now he currently sits about minus 135, minus 140. So this is maybe a potential buy low spot on a guy who the books thought should be a much heavier favorite. He is 32 years old, fighting out of Fusion XL. He's on a really solid 4-fight win streak. And recently, he's been really laying into the grappling aspect of his game. You know, Mike Davis is a guy who I've always felt is extremely well-rounded. He got into the UFC, and they really threw him to the wolves immediately. His UFC debut was against Gilbert freaking Burns, man. Like, you can't expect people to get in there with that guy, especially prime Gilbert Burns, and come out the other side. So the fact that he was able to survive that fight and then kind of turned it around just speaks volumes of what he's potentially capable of and maybe what they thought of him when he first arrived on the scene. But he has had a lot of problems when it comes to his injuries. Mike Beast Boy Davis has been out. He's canceled a lot of fights. He's pulled out of a lot of fights because of issues getting into the cage. So at 32 years old, coming off the end of his prime, I worry we've seen the best of them in the past, but every time I say that, he looks really good. So, like, he put up 9 takedowns on Slaviklaus Borashev. He got hurt in that fight. I think he got, like, his face busted up, and you could see him really, like, protecting, like, the right side of his face. But then he did exactly what he needed to do to go ahead and get the win. We know Slava can't defend a takedown, so 9 takedowns on Slava, like, it kind of is what it is. But having the cardio to do that, having the wits about you to defend the striking, having the durability and the never give up attitude to dig deep and stay in that fight, even when you're hurt, and keep going forward, even when you feel like, you know, the next shot or two might be enough to put you away. He really earned my respect in that fight, being on the bad end of a striking exchange, and comes out against Natan Levy and subs him in the second round, made it look easy. This is a step up in competition for Mike Davis. Don't get it twisted. Faraz Ziam, this version of Faraz Ziam is better than those two guys and more well-rounded than those two guys. Faraz Ziam is a guy who I have been on a lot recently. I talked about his growth, his improvement. I really think he's finding his game. You know, since he got taken down and submitted by Terrance McKinney, you know, who we talked about earlier, he's really put it together. You know, wins over Michael Figlak. Jai Herbert was really the one that was kind of eye-opening because a lot of people did not expect him to win that fight. The Claudio Puelles fight, it was less impressive, you know, went to a split decision. It was close. And then the Frivola fight is where he kind of has capped things off, looking better than ever. His takedown defense has improved, but that's always been the problem in his game, is he will give up takedowns. He's got 3 losses by sub. So I think the grappling side of things for Mike Davis is probably the clearest choice as far as the path to victory in this fight goes. And Faraz does end up sometimes being a little bit low volume. He's kind of point strike. He plays from the outside. Don't get me wrong. He's got stinging power. You know, knocking out a guy like Matt Frivola, not an easy thing to do. But I've low-key kind of always said that Matt Frivola's been a little bit chinny. Like, for his whole career, he's always been just a touch, not quite as durable as he needs to be. So I don't think Faraz is capable of knocking out a guy like Mike Davis. I just don't. Mike Davis can take down Faraz Ziam. Mike Davis could potentially submit Faraz Ziam. I think the physicality side of things goes to Davis. It's all going to come down to how much has Ziam's get-up game improved here. Because when Terrance McKinney took him down, he never got back up. Claudio Puelles is one of those jiu-jitsu guys who rolls for knee bars and doesn't really have a wrestling game. So different levels of grapplers that we're working with here. I know Matt Frivola is a very good wrestler, but I think Davis is much, much thicker, much stronger, much more explosive. So, and on top of that, if I'm not incorrect here, Matt Frivola did not shoot many takedowns in that fight. I believe that was one where you're screaming at the TV, right? Like, if you bet Matt Frivola, you're going, bro, wrestle. And instead he's winging bungalows trying to catch this guy on the chin instead. Mike Davis will wrestle. I promise you that. So, man, I've almost convinced myself to buck the market here and go, okay, you guys brought this number all the way down from minus 220 to about minus 135. And that's where I say that's low enough. I think I like Mike Davis in this fight. It kind of hurts my soul because I think Faraz Ziam has a very high ceiling and he's headed the right way and the improvements are good. He's headed the right direction. It's all looking great for Faraz Ziam, but I'm not sure he's gone far enough yet to be able to stuff the takedowns from a monster like Beast Boy and then also be able to do enough damage to convincingly win a decision. Because I think this fight is going to be close on the feet. I will favor Faraz on the feet, but I don't know if the damage will be there. And then on the mat, it's a big advantage for Mike Davis. So I think I kind of have a Mike Davis by decision call here.
Yeah, I'm so conflicted in this fight because when Mike Davis came into the UFC in 2019, he was 25 or 6 years old, I believe. Gets Gilbert Burns, the worst possible debut you could possibly make. And then, in the last 6 years, he's only fought 4 times. Now he's 32. I feel like he's going to have the mindset of he's got to make up for lost time between the injuries, canceled fights, everything. He's on a 4-fight win streak, but the activity is just not there. Not necessarily his fault, being injured, all that stuff. He's a guy who I think loves to fight and wants to fight. When he's in there against the guys they've thrown in front of him, he's explosive. He hits hard. He can knock you out. His wrestling's great. He racks up a lot of takedowns and he can submit you. But Ziam has been active and he has had that time to go in there and get better and better. Something I think Mike Davis has kind of lacked. Like I said, not his fault whatsoever. But, if Davis does stay on the feet here, Davis throws phenomenal volume. He lands at over 5 significant strikes per minute. Ziam doesn't. He likes to pick his shots. He's more of the accurate striker. lands nearly 3 significant strikes per minute, doesn't get hit that much. He's long, he's tall, has a very good skill set defensively. It's just the wrestling has always been his kind of kryptonite in these fights. He beat Claudio Puelles 2 fights ago, but he got taken down 7 times in that fight. Puelles is a good jiu-jitsu practitioner, not the D1 wrestler that you would think a guy like, getting taken down 7 times. So, but then he's fought in the Jai Herbert's phenomenal striker, beat him by decision, outstruck Figlak, and actually took him down 3 times. But outside of that, hasn't had the highest level of competition. We saw him get submitted by Terrance McKinney. So he does have that glaring hole in his game. It has gotten a little bit better. The takedown defense has gotten a little bit better. But even Frivola had a submission attempt in that fight once he took him down. So this guy, if Davis can get it to the ground, I think you go for subs. I think you put him in some bad positions. And, if you do that through the first 2 rounds, you get out ahead of this thing. You're up 2-0 using that wrestling. Not that you coast in the 3rd round. You never do that, because we see that, come back to bite fighters in the ass all the time. And Ziam's a guy who notoriously, can fight into that 3rd round. But you're setting yourself up for a win by decision if you haven't submitted him already. And, even if Davis is a little bit tired in the 3rd, I think he's explosive and athletic enough to where he can at least put him against the cage and kind of negate that offensive striking at distance that Ziam's going to want to bring. So, yeah, I'm kind of leaning with you here, man. I like Mike Davis. The line's sketching me out a little bit because, I was fully coming off Ziam's last performance against Frivola. I was expecting maybe Ziam to be not a sizable favorite, but the favorite in this spot, just considering Davis only 4 fights in 6 years. Ziam's been active and is very talented in his own right. So, yeah, I lean Davis, but something just feels off about this fight.
Yeah, I mean, the line move kind of sketched me out to begin with. This is one of those ones where when I looked at the card from the top, I was like, ooh, that line feels wide. When I first glanced at it, I'm like, why is Ziam like a plus 185, a plus 190? And then by the time I finished my tape, he was plus 115. So I was like, okay, so the market agreed with me that this was like way wide to begin with. So I completely agree with this line being closer. But yeah, man, at the end of the day, I kind of think Mike Davis is the side. I want to watch this extremely closely because we are already seeing a little bit of buyback. And that, to me, is the biggest symbol here, the biggest signal here. Because when you get an underdog that flips the line, it goes so far that finally the bookies go, you know what, we got to make this guy the favorite. We were wrong. They usually end up winning those fights. When you get the line that gets close to pick 'em and then it heads back the other way, it's like, not so fast. Like, this guy's the underdog for the reason. And the bookies are fine with saying, we will continue to leave plus money hanging out there for you to bet. That kind of gives me a little bit of faith that the favorite is, in fact, the right side. So I'm going to watch this one closely. That little bit of buyback from minus 135 to minus 140 that just happened has my attention. And I'm leaning more Beast Boy than anything at this point. Whether or not I dive in here on a bet, I want to watch and see what happens. If it starts chugging the other way on Faraz again, then I know we just need to stay out of the way of this one. But if it kind of hangs around the minus 140, minus 150 range, then I think Beast Boy probably is the side, and I'll probably feel more comfortable putting my money in there.
Yeah, one more thing I'll say about Mike Davis is, with all the injuries and the layoffs and stuff, guys can lose interest and maybe they're not training as hard and they kind of fall out of love with it. You look at his Instagram, it seems like he's in the gym a lot and he's in phenomenal shape. What's that?
I said, not this guy. No, Beast Boy ain't the guy that's going to get disillusioned here. This guy's a fighter.
No, I think that these injuries have just locked him in. Like he's like, all right, I'm finally good to go. I'm ready to fight. And he's been working hard because you look at him, man, he's jacked. He's in shape, explosive to all hell. If I don't think that portion is going to affect him here. So yeah, gets the wrestling going in the first 2 rounds. He's going to set himself up for a good fight.
Yeah, man. You know what? That might have just done it for me because I'm stalking here while you're talking. And one of the posts that he just made, I'm just going to read this to you guys. In recent years, I've wanted to quit so bad. I've turned towards the road traveled by most, the road abandoned dreams, give-uppers, quitters. I've fought so hard to push back that feeling aside, but there have been so many times that I've looked down that road recently and started to walk. Every time I do, something grabs me by the shoulder and turns me back towards this deep, scary forest and says, there's light on the other side. Even gold. Go. And pushes me. Now that I'm in this forest, I deserve the gold that's on the other side. I deserve to see it through, and I won't stop until I do. It's like, bro, I know people like hype themselves up on social media. I know it's more, smoke and mirrors than anything, people pretending to live the life type of thing. But when a fighter gives a quote like that, where they're like, man, like I was down, I was out, and then I bet on myself. It's like, bro, you're all in. Like that's the kind of quote that lets me know where their head's at. And I'm like, yeah, that might get me. Like just knowing mentally that he's still getting after it, even after getting turned away so many times, that could be enough.
Yeah. I'm going to say one more thing about Ziam too here. I think a lot of people are looking at the knockout over Frivola, and that was his first finish by anything, I guess, in the UFC. Ziam's a good striker, but he's not like a real powerful guy. Frivola was completely gassed, had just been worked that whole fight, and gets knocked out. People's mind goes there when they think of Faram Ziam. Mine goes to Claudio Puelles and getting taken down 7 times by Puelles. Exactly. So if he's taking him down, I think Beast Boy will too.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Again, Puelles has no takedown game. Like you see every single one of his other fights. The guy can't wrestle. He's so reliant on getting the submission. He has such a hard time getting people to the floor. Davis, on the other hand, will dump your ass. Like I fully expect Davis to get takedowns whenever he needs to. So if he gets outclassed on the feet, change it up, put it on the mat. And then frankly, he's just not out of it on the feet the way some of these other guys are. And he's got the durability to take some of the shots coming from Ziam. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I think it's Beast Boy. I think I got to buy low here on this one. All right, guys, let's move along. We got just a couple more fights to get to, and then we'll wrap this bad boy up. Said Nurmagomedov takes on Vinicius Oliveira, the man they call Lock Dog. This is a tough fight, man. This is a tough fight. So Lock Dog came on to the UFC scene, lit the world on fire, had a big-time showing in his debut with a KO of the year performance against Bernardo Sopai, poor kid. And then he comes back out there and gets a decision win over Ricky Simon. And that's the one that I think opened people's eyes. Nobody expected him to be able to beat Ricky Simon. Now, word on the street is that Ricky Simon was dealing with a bit of an injury coming into that fight. Word on the street is that Ricky Simon was not 100% when he fought this man. So the way he fought that fight, man, if you go back and you rerun the tape, that doesn't look like Ricky. Like the way he fought, it just did not look the way that we've come to see Ricky Simon in the octagon. I kind of think there was something to that. I kind of believe that maybe he wasn't 100% in that fight. It's like the Usman rematch with Leon Edwards. There were rumblings about Usman not being 100%, Usman being injured. And he could never get the grappling going. In the first fight, he's just taking down Leon at will and just mauling him on the ground. In the second fight, he's like a timid counter striker and doesn't get the wrestling going. And he's injured. He can't fight the same way he normally does. It just isn't there. I kind of think there's something to that. It seems to me like you've got Lock Dog being the Lock Dog of the week for most people, but like this is a very, very popular dog this week. And I don't want to automatically discount something because a lot of people see value on the same side. Said Nurmagomedov, I've got a confession to make for you guys. Last week, I was talking about the Nurmagomedovs, and I mixed up my Nurmagomedovs because I said I felt Tagir Ulanbekov was the worst of the Nurmagomedov clan, and I mixed him up with Said. I literally swapped those two guys in my head, and I was like, I know I've got a Nurmagomedov that I'm lower on than the rest, and I confused him with Tagir because he's part of the group. No, Said literally is the guy that I talked about last week. So that's my bad, first and foremost. But Said Nurmagomedov is the guy who I think is the worst of the Nurmagomedovs. I think he's the least durable. I think he's got the least amount of grappling ability out of all of them. He wants to be like a long-rangey striker. He overextends on shots. He can be countered. I don't know that he's as durable as some of these other guys are. He's not like true Nurmagomedov bloodline coming to you here in this spot. I think he's the guy that can kind of be had. So somebody like Lock Dog with the incredible striking, the explosiveness, the power, this is the kind of guy that I think Vinicius Oliveira could absolutely crack. But the one thing you can't underestimate is that wicked submission ability of Said Nurmagomedov. He's got chokes that he can catch absolutely anybody with. He's great in scrambles. And as much as I want to say that he's, a little bit fragile, he's never been knocked out before. He's never been finished before. So I'm not entirely sure that this is going to be the first week that it happens. And the thing that stands out most to me in this fight is Lockdog Oliveira getting face planted by Bernardo Sopai and being back mounted, flattened out, and this close to the referee stepping in and calling that fight. I thought Sopai had won by round 2 TKO. Sopai gassed himself in that fight, trying to get the finish, and the ref did not reward him with the finish, and he ended up paying for it and just going out on his shield in the third because he was this close, and there are other officials that would have given him that stoppage because it looked like Oliveira was down and out. If he can do that to this guy, so can Said. I truly think that Said's going to be able to get the back of Vinicius Oliveira at some point, and I think we're going to see another submission win, unfortunately. I want to bet against Said Nurmagomedov. I don't like the minus 180 on Said Nurmagomedov. And I've talked about this before, man. You get the one guy who gets booted out of the family show, right? Like you get when they did the Sphere, and then you had Buddy from Mexico on the next card, the one guy who didn't make the cut. Like, why are you not including me in the party? You're getting kind of singled out. I think it's because they believe they're the weak link. I think they're getting moved out because you don't get to train with your brothers, with your team. You don't get to go with everybody because we're not as interested in you. I think that's an angle you could absolutely apply here to Said Nurmagomedov. He wasn't on the Nurmagomedov card with the other Nurmagomedovs, and I think there's a reason for that. But at the end of the day, I still think just that submission game is something you can't count out. Said Yakub Kakramanov was one of my favorite prospects. Dude is part of gambling Twitter now. He hangs out with everybody betting on fights online, and he knows his shit. I like the guy, and I thought he was a huge prospect for the UFC. He was wiping the floor with Said Nurmagomedov, and then he got caught in a front choke. And that's the kind of thing that I'm just like, okay, like these prospects that I think are potentially serious are able to get caught by this kind of guy. You've got to give respect to that submission ability. So yeah, man, I just think rinse and repeat. I'm not laying minus 185, but I believe Nurmagomedov will make his way into my submission special this week because I think he'll find an opportunity. He'll find a way. And I think it's going to be the back. I think it's back control that gets him there.
Yeah. I'm so conflicted on not taking Oliveira just because I know if I don't, and he wins, I'm gonna look back and just be kicking myself because he came into the UFC against Bernardo Sopai. I think he was only minus 120 there. That's what he closed at. Obviously got the big knockout after Sopai gassed, but then he goes in there like plus 175 against Ricky Simone and wins that fight pillar to post, only taken down a couple of times. I think a lot of people thought Ricky was just gonna, dominate with the wrestling after seeing how the first 1 or 2 rounds went against Bernardo Sopai. So he's an underdog again. I do agree with the fact that Nurmagomedov, if he takes his back, he's gonna have opportunities for submissions here. And while it's on the feet, Oliveira is obviously going to be dangerous with the striking. He's got a ton of power. He's big. He's strong for this division. The more I look at Said's record, lost to Jonathan Martinez. I arguably thought that he won that fight. He outstruck him 47-38, took him down 3 times with 2 submission attempts, and they gave it unanimous to Jonathan Martinez. And then he loses to Raoni Barcelos, who we just saw the win as a plus 700 dog. So everybody else he's beaten. He submitted Cody Stamen, knocked out Mark Striegel, Ricardo Ramos he knocked out, submitted Kakramanov, and Moin Gafarov recently, which ages really well after what Gafarov did to Rinya Nakamura. So, yeah, it's tough to bet against Nurmagomedov here, but minus 180 doesn't really do it for me, just based off of who is standing across from him, who hasn't lost in the UFC, and just keeps cashing as an underdog or even money type of pick. So it is tough. I do think, though, while the fight's on the feet, Said's quick. He's very rangy, throws those spinning kicks, and is very good with his striking. Oliveira is more of a guy who's just going to catch you with the big shots here and there. And if those big shots don't come, I do think he kind of gets, lit up a little bit with the volume from Said Nurmagomedov. Oliveira what's his let's see. Takedown defense is at 68%. Considering who he's fought, two good wrestlers, it's not terrible. And Saeed, does land, I guess, averages one takedown per fight, but he lands them at 16%. Not a great wrestler for a Nurmagomedov, but a good submission artist. So I'm interested to see where the fight takes place, because it could take place a number of places, if I'm being honest. If Saeed wants to put him against the cage and drag him down, that's an option. He can go for that. He's got decent cardio, so I think he could kind of implement that game plan over the long course of the fight. And if it stays at range, Oliveira might get touched up, but he's got a chance to land some big shots too, which makes it very interesting at that plus 150 range. So I'm having a hard time picking. I'll probably take Saeed for the pick, because I do think he has more past the victory, maybe at range, maybe with the submission. But I'm definitely not touching it at minus 180. I think Lock Dog might be the side. It might be a dog or pass type of situation here.
Yeah, man. And like I said, I respect it. I know a lot of people are taking a nibble on the dog side here, and I completely respect it. I totally understand it. I would be more interested in a violence bet, because I feel like if Lock Dog really gets going, he's going to finish. And if Saeed finds his opportunity, he's all finish. He's all finishing upside. And actually, I want a huge shout out and thank you to the chat. This is why I keep you guys around. So apparently, you guys, I have had this wrong in my head literally the entire fight, the entire time. Saeed Nurmagomedov is the lesser of the Nurmagomedovs, because he doesn't train with the other Nurmagomedovs, and that's completely my bad. This guy's a training partner of Teamer Valley Evans that beat Magomed Sharapov. I thought he was part of the team. I knew he had no relation, same last name, but I legitimately thought he trained with the other Nurmagomedov. So good shout out, you guys. He actually is not a member of the team. He trains with the other group of Russians over there, which explains a lot, quite frankly.
He's got that wiry style, kind of like a Zabit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Makes sense. He's like uber athletic and flexible. It's almost weird to watch.
It is. It really is. So yeah, man, this is a fun fight. That's an exciting fight. Again, I would lean towards violence. I lean towards Nurmagomedov finding his sub. But I'm more of a fan of Lock Dog, and I would love to see another highlight reel KO. So I'm going to be rooting for that side. Money will stay in my pockets unless I'm playing that submission prop. Next fight up, you guys, we've got Sergei Pavlovich, and he takes on Biggie Boy Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the biggest heavyweight fight we could get right about now. Now, I say the biggest, but it's really one-sided, man. I've talked about this, and I want to let you guys know literally every time. They have got this fight listed as Sergei Pavlovich with a 1-inch height advantage. That's a lie. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is listed on the UFC stat site at 6'2", but he is 5'10" on a good day. Like, there's no way. He is so short. He is not as big as these other guys. Sergei Pavlovich is absolutely going to tower over this man. There's going to be a massive size discrepancy. And on top of that, Sergei Pavlovich has those monkey arms, the knuckles dragging on the floor type, my type of arms. And he's got a 6-inch reach advantage in this spot. I love me some Jairzinho. You can make big money backing him in the right spots, because he is always underrated by the general public in these MMA fights. And frankly, you guys, he's watching. I don't know if any of you saw, but on social medias, he posted a clip from Tapology where it's got like the vote percentages. So like he knows how many people are picking him to win and who's picking against him. So he keeps tabs on that kind of stuff. But frankly, I just think this is the worst case scenario matchup for him, man. This is Frankie Murder all over again. When he fought Francis Ngannou and he wanted to be a little bit technical and try to out-finesse the big guy that hit harder than him, didn't end well. Francis just walked forward, swung meat hooks, and eventually found the chin, and that was that. Jairzinho's got to have a guy who he can play technical with. He's low volume, he's got solid big power, and he waits for that opening. And if you give him that opening, he will take it and he will nuke you, because this guy's got that kind of power. But Sergei Pavlovich is faster, he's bigger, he's longer. This is going to be a race to the jaw, much like the Tai Tuivasa fight. And I just think Pavlovich is going to win that race. I can't lay minus 300 on Sergei Pavlovich to win what is going to be a round 1 KO type of race. But I do think he's going to be the one that gets the win here. God love you if you're picking Biggie Boy to win this one. I don't think we're going to see Sergei Pavlovich on a 3-fight losing skid, man. What about you?
Yeah, it's a tough spot for Biggie Boy because he's fought the who's who, Francis Ngannou, the top guys right now, Curtis Blades, guys like that. And they're kind of throwing him in there with a monster again. Like he'll beat the Tai Tuivasas, the Shamil Gadzhiev, who's not very technical and not great cardio. 5-round fights like against Gadzhiev benefit Jairzinho because he does have decent cardio for a heavyweight. He'll kind of work the body. He'll throw those teep kicks, hit you with the jab, bust your nose up, get you tired. But when he's fighting these heavy hitters, or guys with good striking, Cyril Gane, but the Francis Ngannou who just laid him out badly in the first round. Volkov landed a big shot and finished him in the first round. He struggles with that power a little bit early. If he survives the first, though, I mean, Pavlovich's back is kind of against the wall here. 2-fight losing streak. The Aspinall loss, Aspinall, outside of John Jones, we got to wait and see how that plays out. But Aspinall is as good as they come. But losing to Volkov, after the first, he got outstruck pretty badly. I think totals on the night, it was 83-46 in favor of Volkov. But, Volkov had the length, the size, the kicks. It was just a little bit too much. And Volkov, I think, proved against Cyril Gane that he is, top of the division still. I have a trouble picking Pavlovich just because of, guys turn in different fighters when their back's against the wall. He can't come out here just like the Marauder, like he got away with for 6 fights in a row when he was fighting the Shamil Abdurakimovs and Maurice Green and Marcelo Gom. He's fighting the guy with a ton of experience, actual technical kickboxing abilities, and a guy with decent cardio. So if Pavlovich does come out here and blows his wad in round 1, I think it's a long night for him. But at the same time, he's got every bit of the chance to go out here and finish Jairzinho too. I mean, this is a kind of a, dare I say, step down for Jairzinho and or for Pavlovich, sorry, and kind of a big step up for Sergei here.
Completely agree, man.
I had that backwards. Sorry, step up for Jairzinho and a step down a little bit for Pavlovich. So, yeah, I don't really necessarily agree with the odds because it's heavyweight MMA. These guys hit hard. Anything can happen. I lean with Pavlovich to win the fight, but it gets sketchy after that first round and a half.
Absolutely. Yeah, nailed it on the head right there for me, man. I think we're seeing that fight exactly the same way. Got to go with Sergei to go ahead and get the win. But the price tag is terrifying. I don't see the guy going on a 3-fight losing streak. And I think we've seen that Jairzinho, for as good as he can be, is just a little bit smaller, and he's just outside that top, like what, 6, top 7 circle, right? Like he's the guy that's gonna give those guys bounce backs. He's gonna be the guy that is the gatekeeper when you're climbing the ranks. Like that's gonna be the guy to get by, so you're legit, so you're a challenger. And I think Sergei will pass that test. All right, we got just a couple more fights to talk about, guys. Do me a favor and hit that like button. And I forgot to switch the tab over. We already talked about the big boys. We've got Shara Bullet Magomedov taking on Michael Venom Page. My lord, man. What can I even say about this fight? Shara Bullet is the UFC's new favorite pet project, and I kind of hate him for it. Again, nothing wrong with the guy. I'm not upset at him. I'm not against him. But the UFC is so fanatical about, cashing in on the hype of this guy that they're doing everything they can to put him in winning situations. And I'm the idiot who, he's the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. He's the Kansas City Chiefs. They just win. Like, it doesn't matter what you find, what angle, what you do, you're going to get bailed out in some sense or capacity. This guy is being put in positions to get his hand raised every single time. And when I looked at this fight, I was like, oh, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one, because MVP is legit. He's a very good striker. He can match this guy's speed and quickness. And you know what? If he was smart, he's been around long enough, maybe he can grapple, because that's the big thing with Shara. Shara can't grapple for shit, so they keep on giving him strikers. They're making sure to give him somebody who has to stand and trade with him. But then it hit me like a ton of bricks. MVP is a 170-pound fighter, you guys. His best wins outside the UFC. This is a 185-pound fight. I cashed in big on Ian Gary in a very close Very greasy, competitive fight that came down to back control in the third round and got the win. And that's what it takes sometimes to get past MVP. But he is very much a Kevin Holland type. He is skinny, he is lanky, he is long, he relies on that speed and that quickness. And now he's moving up a weight class where he's going to be far less effective against the UFC's new poster child. Minus 200 Shara Bullet Magomedov. This is going to be a striking battle, obviously. This is going to be a relatively low volume striking battle. Shara is more of the pick and poke type of guy. He will score karate point style, make sure he's touching you a lot. Whereas you've got Michael Venom Page, who tries to set up a lot of things and explodes and looks for that one big hitter quitter. And because of that, can end up being a little bit too low volume sometimes. Shara is simply going to outwork MVP. When MVP does land, and he will, it's not going to be hard enough to KO a guy like Shara Bullet because he's smaller, because he's in the wrong weight class for this one. That's going to be the problem. So I think this is going to be a volume-based decision for Shara Bullet. It's going to be a little bit more low volume than we're used to because he'll respect the speed and the power of MVP. But at the end of the day, Shara will get his hand raised, and we have seen MVP just nuked to Hades before. So at 185 pounds, I worry that 38-year-old Michael Venom Page may not be able to take the kind of shots that he could against people his size years ago. We could just be looking at another highlight reel for Shara as this fight gets deeper because he can crack and he does hit hard and he is very creative with his strikes. Again, I'm calling for a decision. I think it's going to be Shara Bullet decision, but you can't rule out that late finish from this guy. I think the UFC very obviously is putting their chips in on the Shara side.
Yeah, I think for me, this is such a double-edged sword because MVP is so fast at 170 pounds. Now moving up to 185. I think he's going to be way faster than Shara and not the most power in the hands, notoriously. I mean, he did good against Ian Gary in the first round. He kind of freezes guys with that speed, and his movement is weird, and his timing is way different than anybody else, and he explodes and rushes forward and can land those shots. The speed will be there for sure, but the volume is just never there. He lands 2.38 significant strikes per minute. Even against like Holland in an basically all striking fight, he lands 41 significant strikes. He had I don't know how Ian Gary, that round 3 was weird with the backpack and stuff. But before that, round 2 was all striking. He lands 21 significant strikes. It was basically hitting Ian Gary when he wanted. He just bounces, waits for a shot. On the other side, Shara lands 6.82 significant strikes per minute against guys like Mikhail Zajac, who likes to stand and trade. Outstruck him 97-77. Armin Petrosian, that was a phenomenal fight and proved to me that Shara's got a chin because he was getting touched in that first round by Armin, who's a big dude, a powerful dude, and a very, very skilled kickboxer. And he could not take the shots coming back from Shara there in that second round. That double spinning back fist was something that it's like out of a movie, something like CGI, back in the day that you just don't see in real fights. Super
as
impressive.
A guy that bet against him that night, just meme the shit out of me, dude. Like I'm finding new ways to lose every event. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, I thought Armin Petrosian was a side there, and very skilled kickboxer, very skilled striker, and he just couldn't beat Shara. Now, Michael Venom Page maybe finds a big shot and hurts him, but if you're taking clean shots from Armin Petrosian at 185 pounds and you're able to eat that and come back to win in the very next round, I don't think Page is going to hit you enough times to really do a ton of damage. Like, yeah, he's fast. Yeah, he's a talented striker, but he's 36 years old, I believe, maybe even older than that. Couldn't knock out Mike Perry in bare knuckle fighting or even beat Mike Perry in bare knuckle fighting, who's not really a technical striker, who's kind of a marauder who just marches forward. Now you have a talented kickboxer in Shara, a guy who can eat a punch, a guy who the UFC is just putting up on a pedestal in these countries and like Saudi Arabia. And, they love it when he fights in Abu Dhabi. I think this is a fight where the matchmakers are seeing something and they think Shara can win this fight because this is a big name. Michael Venom Page, the biggest name from Bellator, very talented guy. But I do think it's Shara's time. He's younger, way more volume, more power in the hands. it's just basically at a speed disadvantage. And it's not like Venom Page is going to kick his legs off or anything. So, yeah, I think Shara should win this fight. Plus 160, plus 170 on MVP, who does have a big name, just seems like trap of the year. So, yeah, I'm on the Shara side. Minus 200, not really my style to bet, but I'm extremely excited to see this fight.
Yeah, man, this one should be fun. This one should be very, very entertaining, but I'm right there with you. I feel like that feels trappy, and it's interesting because we do see a lot of people in the chat that are kind of talking up the MVP side. He does still have a little bit of that aura about him, and I think that's kind of the point. I think that's kind of the point. The UFC is looking to steal some of that and put it on Shara because he's their new boy. All right, guys, we got 650 live viewers. Thank you all so much for being here. Good number after a week off on a potentially small shady card. I'm with my guy Nolan, the Parlay MMA. Make sure you give him a follow. Check out his content as well. And let's get into this main event, man. You've got Israel Adesanya taking on Nassourdine Imavov. Oh, my Lord, how the mighty have fallen. Israel Adesanya has been in nothing but title fights for like 10 straight freaking years, man. This guy's done nothing but main event and go 25 minutes for so long. And I think it's finally taken its toll on him. You know, he's 35 years old. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. You know, I called the comeback against Alex Pereira. That one was one of my greatest cashes ever in 2023 when he knocked him out with that right hand. I literally called the right hand. Like I called the punch that he ended the fight with. It was my absolute favorite thing. And then I should have known better. The Sean Strickland fight. I kind of told everybody, I was like, this is him coming off of Mount Everest. Like he got tracked down in MMA by his all-time greatest rival, and he defeated him after losing to him in a second sport. And he got the win that was always evading him. How do you come back from that? Motivationally, how do you come back from that? And you're fighting a guy like Sean Strickland. And I didn't have the guts to pull the trigger on plus 500 Sean Strickland. I knew to stay away from Izzy, but I didn't have the balls to actually get in there and bet on Sean Strickland. And sure enough, he drops the fight to Sean Strickland. He gets his chance against Dricus du Plessis. Now that's a hammer spot for me. You guys know I'm all team DDP. I knew that one was coming. I knew it was DDP inside the distance. We called the sub and everything. DDP is my guy. That's one of my horses that I've just been cashing left and right on. So feel pretty good about that. But this is the critical point in Israel Adesanya's career, right? This is it. We find out what he's made of now. He's 35 years old. And the only reason I would have to describe Israel Adesanya's fighting style to you is if you're a brand new MMA fighter and 2025 was the first time you clicked on the UFC to find out about these guys, right? You guys know who Israel Adesanya is. You know how elusive he is. You know how good his footwork is. You know that unless you're Dricus du Plessis, you're not going to be able to submit this guy. Like, he is incredible. He is championship caliber through and through. One of the best fighters this weight class has ever seen. Nassourdine Imavov is a guy who I have been really down on for a long time. Now, he's only 28 years old, which is kind of shocking to me. I thought he was older than that. He is just now coming into his prime. I can't get the loss to Phil Hawes out of my head. You know, this guy has always had really sketchy cardio. You know, the next time he got a big step up in competition, or the first time he got a big step up in competition, I guess I should say, they thought he was something. They gave him Sean Strickland as a test, and he got washed by Strickland. Now, we all know Strickland is a cardio monster, right? 25 minutes for days. He could do back-to-back title fights if he wanted to. That's the kind of cardio Strickland has, and Imavov couldn't hang with it. So he goes back to the drawing board, gets another couple of wins. Really good win with the finish over Jared Cannonier. I thought Cannonier was going to be the one to kind of wear on him deep in that fight, but I think he's got his cardio issues kind of sorted out to some extent, and Cannonier has fallen off a cliff to some extent. The Brendan Allen fight, that one kind of disappointed me because, frankly, I thought he should have finished Brendan Allen. Like, the durability issues from Brendan we've seen in the past. I felt like if Imavov was really going to announce himself as a contender, really drive home the fact that he's fixed up his issues and he's ready for that next level, you would finish a guy like Brendan Allen. But he just got the win, just a, unanimous decision win. I am not sold that Imavov's cardio issues are completely resolved. I know Israel Adesanya knows a 25-minute fight like the back of his hand. This man is going to be fully comfortable in that octagon. And I just don't know that Imavov is a slick enough striker to keep up with Izzy for 25 minutes. I also believe that if Imavov tries to wrestle Israel Adesanya the way that we saw someone like Dreykus do, I think he'll wear himself out rather than wearing on Izzy. And if Izzy truly is back for this fight, if he's given it his full heart, if he knows, if this isn't a retirement fight, if he's saying, I'm coming back to be a star, I'm coming back to cash some checks in the UFC, he's got some good years left in him. If that's the attitude, I really think he should win this fight. And this is a massive step down in competition from who he's been facing. Just the top 3 guys, the best of the best in this weight class. I don't count Nassourdine and Imavov among those guys. And on top of that, he went so far as to hook up with a former enemy here. Man, he's training with Rob Whittaker, another guy who I think is just been looked down on and counted out his entire career, but is a championship caliber fighter through and through and always has been. So I think Izzy is full go for this fight. And if we get a reinvigorated, reinvested Israel Adesanya in this fight, I don't see how he doesn't beat Nassourdine Imavov in a 25-minute fight. I think it's going to be Izzy by decision. I don't think he's going to knock him out. I don't think he's going to finish him. Unless Nassourdine blows his wad early in the fight and leaves himself just kind of helpless in rounds 4 and 5. I think Izzy kind of does what Izzy does and avoids the damage and kind of picks and pokes his way to a decision win. I think this is another buy low spot. And I'm not going to be backing a whole lot of 35-plus-year-old fighters in 2025, man. I'm not. I think we're going to see a bit of a changing of the guard overall in this year. But the way that someone like, Merab at 35 years old is able to have a death grip on that title and hang on to it, Izzy's the kind of rare special talent that if he's fully motivated, he does too. So I think he wins this fight.
Yeah, and I can see it being a fully motivated Izzy here because this fight is way more important than I think people realize, because you can't drop a Sean Strickland title fight, lose your belt, get an immediate title fight against DDP and lose that one, and then lose the Imavov, because then your chances of getting back to the title after 35 years old after those 3 losses aren't great. A lot of things kind of have to happen and happen really fast before you're just completely out of your prime and you don't really have the skill set, speed, and all that to work your way back into the title shot. So it's a super important fight. I just worry, man. He looked good against DDP. I think he was winning the fight, but he was wobbly, not from getting hurt. He was just, you could tell, man, his legs were heavy. He was tired, and maybe that was from DDP's strength and the grappling and having to stuff takedowns and work his way back to the feet. But his shots didn't have as much snap on him. He was a little more hesitant to throw with DDP throwing back at him. And, Imavov isn't a phenomenal power puncher by any means. He's kind of a guy who does hold a little power, but he'll kind of beat you with the volume game too, if he can do it in the first 3 rounds. The other side to this with Imavov is I think he's very talented, but man, that Cannonier fight wasn't going great for him up until the finish. I thought he was losing the fight.
I thought so too.
Found the finish. Early stoppage too. Like if Cannonier recovers and it gets to the bell and Cannonier gets a second win, I think Cannonier was up 2-1 or whatever it was. It could have been tied going into the 5th. And
I thought it was going to be 2-2 going into 5. Yeah,
man. I mean, the first 2 rounds were not the best for Imavov there. Even against Brendan Allen, he gets taken down and controlled the whole first round, comes back with a great second round. But, if Brendan Allen doesn't shoot takedowns in that 3rd round and keeps it on the feet, that's an even round. Like that's one going to the judges' scorecards where you're not quite sure what the hell they're going to say. So, if he gets tired against Izzy, I do think Izzy is talented, experienced, obviously, and his striking is very good enough to where he'll know what to do in those championship rounds far more than Imavov will, and he'll know how to expend his energy. So for Imavov, it's kind of it's a tough decision. Do you go out there and you wrestle him early and worry about gassing yourself out, or do you stand and trade with him and hope you can keep it somewhat close, get into the championship rounds, have enough energy to put him against the cage and try to steal some rounds off of him there? I don't think either guy has the power to just spark the other. I think if someone gets finished, Imavov gets a takedown or lands on the back and works in a submission, or Imavov death gasses and Israel Adesanya is just kicking the body over and over and then finds a big shot upstairs. Oh man, I just with seeing Izzy not so much lose a step because he was beating the champ of the world DDP, but just kind of looking not as fast and a little more hesitant. That's what's worrying me here. And I don't think Imavov's the guy that the UFC is dying to push into the title picture. I mean, they've got like the Hamzats and the DDPs and those guys up there right now that they're completely content with at throwing all of them at each other. Um, I- for me, the big thing here with Izzy is to take this fight against Imavov. He's got to be confident in something, because if he loses, like I said, out of the title picture, if he wins, he sets himself up for big fights in the future. If
Absolutely.
DDP and Sean are fighting, okay, there's Hamzat. That's a massive money-making fight for you. And at 35, 36 years old, maybe Izzy's just looking to get absolutely paid with the win off of Imavov, and then there's big fights in the future. But a loss here, a lot of that goes out the window. So we'll see what back against the wall Adesanya has. I think he wins the fight, but man, minus 165, it might look like a great line after the fight. But right now, I'm just a little bit hesitant.
I hear you, man. I think a lot of people continue to disrespect my man Dricus du Plessis and just not really give him his flowers for what he's capable of.
Yeah, I don't think they understand his game either.
Exactly, and he's got
he's
freakish
fine with losing
power.
rounds here and there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he will give a round up. Now, and not that he isn't trying to win it, right? But he'll lose a round, but do what he needs to do in that round to chip away at you for the future. And that's where, like, in the first round against Israel Adesanya, it's a striking match. They're trading power shots. In round 2, that's when he changes it up and he goes for the grappling. He shot 5 takedowns and landed 3 of them. He made sure that Izzy was aware that he had to watch his takedowns in round 3. And then guess what? He started throwing hammers. Like, then he started laying down the striking, fully mixing up his game. And that's something nobody's really been able to do to Israel Adesanya for the most part. So he had Izzy in a position he wasn't used to being in, both throwing volume, receiving damage, and then also having to defend takedowns. I guess that's 3 things, not both. But anyway, you guys get the point. So Dricus is a completely different level, and him melting Israel Adesanya the way he has melted every single person he's fought on his way to the title except Sean Strickland. I think that's just par for the course on Dricus, and people looking through the lens of Israel Adesanya is shot rather than giving Dricus the, hey, bro, you did it again. Like, to me, that's, I think, where we're seeing this value on both guys, because I think Dricus is going to win his next fight. I think he's going to make it look easier than when he fought Sean Strickland the first time. And I think Israel Adesanya is going to bounce back in this spot when he finally gets a step down, when he's not fighting a top 3 guy in the division. I think he'll look like the Izzy of old, even if he is slipped a little bit, even if he is not peak Israel Adesanya. I think he's got enough gas in the tank to turn away a would-be contender who I don't think is there yet. Imavov might be a guy that challenges for a title at some point down the road. He's young enough. You never know. He could still make improvements. He could still get better. He could still develop and round his game out. But at this point, I just don't think he's ready for the big stage quite yet at 28 years old. I think he needs a little more seasoning. So for me, it's buy low on Israel Adesanya here again.
It'll be a great experience for him nonetheless. But I kind of lean with you here too.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear we agree on that one. Also, man, hey, for those of you who are paying attention, I did not give up on it. There was no Link Memorial Dog of the Week this week. I've always said that I'm not going to force it. And you guys know that I am a dog hunter. I like underdogs. I like finding the value on underdogs. And there's a couple who I think have a shot, but I don't just fully want to embrace and get involved with right away. And then there's a couple of coin flips where it's like, man, if I'm giving minus 105, like, is that dog of the week? Like, I can't really give dog of the week for that kind of bullshit. So I don't have a dog that I really just love on this card. I think some of these lines are too wide, but I side with almost all of the favorites. I guess if I had to pick one, Mayra Bueno Silva catching a sub early would be the closest thing I could get to like my pick for dog of the week. But that would really be about it for me. So mostly favorites all down the board, unfortunately. And then of course those coin flips. My guy, Nolan, thank you so much for chilling with me for a couple of hours and talking UFC fights with me. Where can the people support you? Where can they find your stuff? What do you got going on? The floor is yours. Go ahead and shout out, man.
Yeah, man. Instagram, TikTok. I got to get more active on X or Twitter and YouTube, all the Parlay MMA. Yeah, man. I've pushed out content on TikTok and Instagram mainly. It's kind of where I started and I found a ton of success with. So I've kind of ran with it. But this year we're going to look to get into the Twitter space too, because it looks like a lot of fun. There's some interesting stuff on there. I love reading MMA Twitter, man. Or MMA
It's its own
X.
little ecosystem, man.
Oh man, it's great. It's great, but it's hard to fit into the algorithm too, because I'll post and I'll not get any views, and it gets frustrating. So, but yeah, all social media is at the Parlay MMA, and thank you for having me on, man. It's a great show. You've been doing it forever, consistently, and that's tough to do. People don't realize in this space how hard it is to push out content every single week with kids, with family, and everything. So props to you, man. You do a great job, and I was honored to be on here today.
Thanks a ton, man. I really appreciate that. I'm glad we got this together finally. Thank you so much for cutting out the time and coming here on the show with me. I really appreciate it. You guys, I do want to take just a little bit of a look back. You know, the ones jumping out to me, Mike Davis, Israel Adesanya, those are probably the ones that I like here on this card. I do want to just go ahead and shout out and say, you guys, it's been a tough start to the year. 2025 has set the bar for insanity as far as how wild this year has been, and it gets worse. The Kansas City Chiefs are playing in the Super Bowl again, so I know we're all just kind of hating life right now, and no matter what side of the fence you're on, you know, guys, we don't do politics on this show. No matter what side of the fence you're on, politically speaking, people are having a tough time out there right now. So I just want to let you guys know this is a safe space. We come here to talk fights. We come here to talk gambling, hobbies. We have fun together. We enjoy the best sport in the world, and we're here for each other. So make sure, you know, you're making friends. Sometimes you got to be the bigger person. I know right now tensions are high. There's a lot of things that people are going at each other about. But sometimes if you're the first person to lay down your sword, that goes a real long way. So do your best to be the light that you want to see in other people. And sometimes you'll strike out. Some people out there are dicks. You're just not going to win with them. But more often than not, you're going to find somebody who was just looking for a little piece of humanity. And if we can give that opportunity to them, they'll repay it in kind. So do your best to not fight with the people around you. Try to surround yourself with people who are positive. And even if you don't necessarily see eye to eye with somebody, you can still have a genuine conversation and genuinely care for somebody and find that peace, find that middle ground. So I hope you guys can do that, because we need some more humanity. We need more people being on the same page. We need some more love right about now, everywhere, in everything. So do your best. I will be back on Thursday for the Total Takedown. I will be back on Friday for the Undefeated Post Weigh-In show. And then first thing Saturday morning, we have got some UFC fights, and hopefully we can make some money. Thank you again, Nolan, for joining me, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. This show went a little longer than I expected, but we had a real good time with it, so we just kind of had to keep it rolling. Do me a favor, please. Share the show out. Get subscribed if you haven't. Hit that like button on your way out the door. Be good. Be good, you guys. Let's roll.